Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Well done, Tsunade congratulated teams Kakashi and Kurenai due to your success in the mission to retrieve Uchiha Sasuke before he murdered Uchiha Itachi. I grant you each enough vacation time to forget all about this ugliness. Most everyone smiled at this, but Naruto noted she seemed to be a bit nervous. In intervals of a few seconds, she would glance out her window, craning her neck in hopes of some unknown visitor's arrival, and then promptly swiveling her head back towards the 8 shinobi, a sigh escaping her lips. Are you alright, Tsunade-ban? Naruto asked. Brow raised, she waved him off. No, I'm fine. You've got your best friend back, right? You go out and… But suddenly, an Anbu soldier slid his way through the open window and knelt down. Hokage-sama, he said, speaking rapidly, I have an urgent message to deliver. From whom? She asked. From one of the elder toads of Mount Myoboku, the Anbu answered. This resonated only with Tsunade and Naruto, who knew that that particular mountain had been the source of all Jiraiya's training with his frogs. Deliver your message, Tsunade ordered, her tone much more timid than before. Yes, ma'am. Retrieving a small piece of paper from his pocket, he cleared his throat and began. An undetermined amount of time prior to the delivery of this message, Jiraiya-sama was met in combat with the leader of Akatsuki, a man known to the world only as Pain. After some analysis, Jiraiya-sama sent the information directly to here in hopes that we would receive it and destroy Pain and Akatsuki. After doing so, however, the ANBU's voice diminished. Jiraiya-sama was brutally murdered by Pain. Naruto's heart stopped. Ero Sennin? Dead? It didn't seem possible, and as such, Naruto's first instinct, thankfully not selected, was to laugh. Naruto had always taken his existence as a constant, as one of the few stable things in his life. He was one of the Sannin. He was incredibly strong enough to take a full-on blast from Naruto's own four-tailed transformation and live. He'd acted like Naruto's crazy, drunken, obsessed father for 3 years, but he was still a damned father. Understood, Tsunade replied quietly a short while later. You may leave. With a nod, the Anbu was off, leaving no evidence of his arrival but for one small slip of paper on the desk. That's it? Naruto wondered aloud after the Black Ops member was gone. You say, understood, and that's it? You just let Ero Sennin's death just wash over you? Tell me, do you have a heart of fucking stone? Naruto. Sakura chastised. You mustn't speak to Tsunade-sama lick. Shut up, Sakura-chan. Naruto roared. Sakura awed in fear. I'll talk to this hag the way I want. So tell me, hag, do you have any idea what he thought of you? Naruto, Tsunade piped up, nearly at a whisper. It is not the issue of the Hokage. He loved you, you know that? Naruto bellowed in fury. He utterly fucking loved you. He told me, so many nights, that no woman he'd met was as beautiful as you, or as enchanting, or whatever the hell you want. And you know something else? He was a great guy, and you just had to keep turning him down because you're too stuck up to see past your own nose. Naruto-kun, Hinata muttered, saddened by Naruto's words. Shut up, Tsunade murmured, her back to Naruto. Don't tell me to shut up. You know it as well as I do, that he… I said shut up, she cried, and whipped around to face both teams, revealing the tears cascading down her reddened cheeks. You're right, you're absolutely right. I shouldn't have turned down his advances, I shouldn't have had my own pride. He was wonderful, and I didn't get to tell him. I'm a failure. She fell to her knees with a thud, the rivers of tears flowing even more forcefully. I couldn't save him. I'm a failure as a ninja, a failure as a woman, and a failure as Hokage. I should have been the one to die, not him, oh, God, not him. Her sobs echoed around the room as Shizune and Sakura knelt beside her. Naruto sighed and started towards the exit. Just, make sure you give him a damned good funeral, okay? He said, and, not even checking that she had nodded, left the building. A few seconds later, Hinata hurried after him. His destination hadn't been planned, yet his legs had taken him to the only place he would have thought. The old training ground, the place where he first became a true shinobi. With a sigh, he plopped himself down at the trunk of a tree, closing his eyes and breathing deep the scent of the land. The woods, the grass, the dirt, the glorious flowers? Lids flipping open, he noticed Hinata standing over him, concerned. Hinata, He asked, "What are you doing here?" I thought you didn't seem to be okay. I just wanted to check up on you," she replied, forcing at once with all her might to not blush and to not faint. "Oh," he said plainly. Patting the earth next to him, he said, "Come. Sit with me." Hinata was grateful for this for two reasons. One, she really did love Naruto's company and to sit next to him would be a dream, and two, she felt her legs were going to give out any moment. Are you sure?" "Yeah, I could use the company right about now." Slowly, she set herself beside him, both exhilarated and frightened by their proximity. Quote ellipsis. "Jiraiya-sama was a great man," she said eventually despite the fear in her heart that her words would backfire. Naruto grinned in nostalgia. He was a stupid, drunken, perverted oaf. But he was always a good person, always honorable. He always wanted what was best for the village, the country, or even the world. Naruto's expression plummeted to a sorrowful scowl. So much so that he sacrificed his life for us, for me. "I'm gonna miss him." "I'm sorry," Hinata whispered, "but if you need anything, I'm here for you." She turned away to hide her enormous blush, certain that he'd laugh or yell at her. Instead, he reached a hand out and grasped her shoulder, sending a burst of electricity through her mind. "Thank you, Hinata," he said tenderly. "I know, Sakura-chan will be busy with Tsunade Baan and Sasuke. I thought I would be alone. But if you're here, I think it'll be better." Hinata could scarcely breathe at these words. "You're a good friend, Hinata, and a fine person." "Thank you," she breathed, and, though it felt like snapping her own neck, turned back and smiled at him. "Well," he said, standing and patting the dust off himself, "what do you say we go have some ramen, Might treat. Naruto-kun, I think that would be. I would like that," she finally managed to squeak out. His toothy, and goofy, smile restored, he extended his palm to her. She was briefly stunned, paralyzed by the opportunity to even brush her beloved's hand, but, gaining newfound confidence, grasped his arm, letting herself be pulled up. "Great," he said, starting to lead them to Ichiraku, "then let's get going." Before they could take another step, however, another Enbu soldier leapt in front of Naruto. "Uzumaki Naruto," he said promptly, "I have been assigned to deliver these to you." Displaying what appeared to be a paper handbag, he continued, "These were the items that Jiraiya-sama intended to bequeath you in the event of his death." Before Naruto could ask what they were, the masked soldier was off in a puff of smoke. What is it?" Hinata asked, peering into the bag. She easily could have used her Byakugan, but didn't want to intrude. "I'm not sure." Tentatively, Naruto opened the bag slowly. A part of his mind feared that he would find porn in this bag and Naruto really didn't want to have his inheritance be that in front of Hinata. However, inside were not pornographic books, but instead, a small book and a few messages on separate slips of paper. "An Icha book?" Naruto muttered under his breath. "I've read all of them. This doesn't seem to be a new one." Checking the publishing date, he discovered the book was released a few months before Naruto was born. The title caught his widening eye, The Tale of the Gallant Naruto. Hinata had noticed it too. "What does this mean, Naruto-kun?" she asked quietly. "I don't have a clue." Naruto was shocked. His name wasn't very common. He knew that. There was a note scribbled under the title inside the book. "To Minato and Kushina. Hope the baby's coming along well, and I hope you enjoy this novel, even though most didn't. Well, have a good time, anyway. Sincerely, Jiraiya-sensei." Minato? Kushina? Naruto didn't know these people at all, but why did he refer to himself as Jiraiya-sensei? And why was the main character named Naruto, for that matter? Excited, he moved on to the notes. The first one said, "Jiraiya-sensei. I don't know why your book wasn't liked. I loved it, personally. It was a great read, something to pass along the time while I make all these heavy decisions for the village, and I really liked that main character. Come on over and we'll talk about it. Kushina and I have something important to ask of you. Ever your faithful student, Namikaze Minato." Namikaze. A last name. One of Jiraiya's students, he was in a position of power. If only he knew more about this Kushina person, Naruto thought, it would definitely make more sense. Hinata had read the note as well and watched as Naruto, so tense his hands were vibrating, snatched the second note, written in a nicer, curvier handwriting than the last two messages. It read, "Jiraiya-sama. I'm glad you accepted the responsibility, as the one who named him. Really, as Minato said, I can't think of a better person for the position. Thank you so much. Grateful, Uzumaki Kushina. Naruto felt his brain explode. He mouthed, Uzumaki, unaware of the look of shock Hinata wore. As though a system of stopped cogs were suddenly forced roughly into function, the pieces clicked in Naruto's head. Jiraiya had been the teacher of the fourth Hokage, the strongest ninja to ever live. His name was Namikaze Minato. He had a wife, or at least a lover, with whom he was having a baby, and her name was Uzumaki Kushina. Jiraiya had written a book before writing the popular Icha Icha series, a book with a main character named Naruto. Minato had loved the main character. Loved him enough to want his son to be like him and thus, he had Jiraiya christen him as Naruto. As the giver of his name, this made Jiraiya, "Oh my god," said Hinata, having reached the conclusion long before Naruto had. "He was my godfather," said Naruto, eyes blank. The second major blast of information hit him immediately after. Oh my god, I'm the son of the fourth Hokage. Namikaze Minato was my father, and Uzumaki Kushina was my mother. The myriad of implications of this epiphany raced in his head at extreme speeds, painting his brain. There's gotta be something else, he panted, rummaging in the bag for something, anything that would bring these thoughts to a point. His fingers managed to clutch one last slip, his last hope for this chaos that had been wrought upon his life. Barely able to concentrate, he scanned the paper. Naruto, if you were reading this, then I'm dead and you've just received the 2 notes in my first book ever. Knowing you won't be too sad, right? I hope not, anyway. Well, in any case, what I've given you is information on your father, Namikaze Minato, or as you may better know him, the fourth Hokage. He was a fine man, popular, strong, kind. It's no wonder why old man Sarutobi chose him over Orochimaru for the title of Hokage. You also may have guessed that Uzumaki Kushina, his wife, is your mother. From the former Whirlpool country, she was one of the most beautiful shinobi in the land. She was like you, in terms of personality and jutsu. And she loved Minato very, very much. He felt the same. I've left a picture of them between pages 227 and 228. He hadn't finished reading the sentence for a second before he reclamped his hand around the book and opened it as gently as he could with his shaking hands. 227, he muttered, flipping the pages. Finally, he reached the desired page and found a slightly faded photograph with a man he recognized from the Hokage's faces standing with his arm around a gorgeous, brightly red-haired woman. Both wore bright smiles and, from their attire, Naruto guessed that this was on their wedding day. Mom, Dad, he muttered, and he quickly returned to Jiraiya's note. I'm sorry I or anyone else didn't tell you, but the power of the nine-tailed fox. While it gives you an incredible boost to your already wonderful potential, it makes it hell for you to improve and you don't need anyone expecting you to live up to the fourth's reputation. I tried to do my best to watch over you, to be the best godfather I could be, but that's just another failure on my life, I guess. I know you'll end up as the strongest Hokage in history, even stronger than your father, just never give up, not even if the whole world is against you. Well, I guess this is goodbye, Naruto. Have a good life. Ero Sennin. Naruto's hands had turned ghostly white. They had stopped shaking, instead clutching the paper with stone fingers. Jiraiya's words swam in his head in a dizzying effect. He could feel the tears falling. He turned to Hinata, picture in hand. Hinata, he whimpered, these are my parents. Naruto-kun, I've always thought I've been alone for my entire life. Naruto said, trembling, but I wasn't for however briefly. If it's worth anything, Hinata said, bravely resting a hand on his wrist. Why you've always had, me. She handed him a handkerchief from under her jacket. Here, surprised by her words, he took the cloth and dabbed his eyes. Thanks. You know something, Hinata? He returned the cloth. You're great. Really, really great. Now come on, he said, taking her hand and once again unknowingly zapping her with what felt to her like 1,000 volts. Let's go eat, to the memory of my mother, my father, and Jiraiya. Oh, okay, she agreed, and left with him to eat some ramen, completely dazed from the compliment he'd just paid her. It had a year since that day, Hinata recalled, the day that ignited the closeness of her and Naruto's relationship. As Naruto had predicted, Sakura had spent most of her time either rebuilding her relationship with Sasuke or serving Tsunade in the hospital. As a result, Naruto ended up spending more and more time with Hinata, and the two had come to know each other extremely well. Hinata, of course, was ecstatic because of this. She'd managed to keep her fainting to a minimum, to quell her blushes, and even completely erase her stutter. She felt comfortable around him, more so than she did around anyone else. She had been picking flowers in the woods, which happened to be near their old woods, as they now called the meeting place in which Naruto had discovered his heritage, when she had strolled down memory lane. Naruto had dealt with the knowledge of his lineage quite well, thanks in part, Hinata hoped, to her efforts. He hadn't changed at all due to this discovery and hadn't told anyone aside from Hinata. Instead, he merely took pride in the identity of his father and mother, researching the fourth and finding out as much as he could about Kushina. It felt to him there was finally some validation to his life. Hinata sniffed the flowers she held in her basket, fondly remembering when Naruto had told her she had the scent of beautiful flowers, giving Hinata a blush so forceful that steam rose from it. The flowers she'd collected now gave off a beautiful fragrance, so fresh with life. This, combined with her memories and the absolutely glorious day it was outside, placed a great smile upon her face. She recalled when Naruto had discussed the relationship between Jiraiya and Tsunade, how both had felt something for each other but had never really admitted it. Sure, Jiraiya had asked Tsunade out on various occasions, but he went and slept with woman after woman, so it didn't seem like he really wanted her. She, rejecting him all those times, had portrayed the same image. "I just don't understand it," Naruto had said over a bowl of ramen. "How can two people, or even one person, feel that way and not say anything? It's like those two were just lying to each other." Hinata's face fell. If he found out she loved him, would he be angry? Would he consider it lying too? Resolute, she told the sky, "Then I'll do it," and raised a clenched fist. "I'll ask him out today." Her smile had returned, and she hummed a simple but hopeful tune as she searched for more flowers. Suddenly, as if to spite her, clouds rolled onto the sky and immediately, pounding rain careened toward the earth. Sighing, Hinata muttered, "Byakugan," and began searching for a nearby cave. Locating her objective, she quickly hurried into it, leaning against the wall of the entrance, disappointed at the weather. It had been such a good day, too. Well, at least she had her flowers. She'd surely show them to Naruto later, and he would enjoy them with her. Before she could sit down, she felt a needle in her neck, and the pressure of something rushing from it into her. She tried to remove the offending needle, but her arms and legs were numb, leaving her barely able to stand as she dropped her basket, the flowers spilling out. Her Byakugan wouldn't activate. She felt like she was suffocating, completely bound by invisible ropes. Things started to go dark as she heard a creepy, rumbling voice whisper directly into her ear, My sweet little Hyuga Hinata. Wandering all alone in the rain, and picking flowers. How sweet." She felt his hand creep up her chest, pausing to squeeze her breast, and then stopping at her jacket zipper. She wanted to scream, but her voice would not sound, and as such, tears flowed from her pupil-less eyes, the feeling of being violated ripping through her. Having undone her zipper, he moved to her pants, agonizingly slowly pulling down the waist. Hinata tried to scream again, but once more found it futile. "Don't worry, my little flower girl," he whispered languidly into her ear. "You'll find that soon, you won't feel anything at all." Naruto-kun, she thought instinctively. Help, her last sight was that of her flowers, trampled on the ground, ruined by the unknown attacker. "Alright, what the hell is going on?" Naruto roared, meeting Sakura, Shizune and Tsunade in the hospital corridor. "I got a note saying Hinata's in trouble." "Why?" The three women looked from to each other and finally, Sakura nodded. Reaching a hand to Naruto's shoulder, she said, "I don't know how to tell you this exactly, but it seems Hinata has been," she strained to get out the last word, "raped." The sentence didn't click with him. Quote ellipsis. "What?" he asked blankly. "A Chunin scouting a training ground found her inside a cave this afternoon. It appeared she'd been there for quite some time. She was unconscious and her clothes were torn to the point of indecency. He brought her in, and when we examined her, we found she had a great deal of damage around her pelvis. Her wrists were completely stained with rope burn, and she was covered with." Sakura tried to determine a way to put this gently, her fluids. "How's she now?" Naruto asked, eyes widened by this horrifying tale. "She's still asleep. The guy had apparently given her a strong muscle relaxant and sedative." We would try to counteract it, but it's non-lethal, there seem to be no further effects, and we fear any treatment may aggravate her condition." Naruto was furious. He felt his claws and fangs grow, his whisker marks thicken, and his eyes inflame with rage. "Where is the guy?" he asked through forcibly steady breathing. Sakura's expression worsened. "We haven't found him," she told him regretfully. "What?" Naruto raged, grinding his teeth at Sakura. "We had Kiba analyze his scent, but it was difficult to separate from Hinata's. After that was done, he transmitted it to Kakashi-sensei and he sent the Ninken out to find him. They haven't yet come back." "Where is she?" "She's in this room," Sakura answered, pointing to the one next to them, "but I don't think it's a good idea for you to get out of my way," he bellowed and forced his way into the room. His fox traits vanished instantly as his anger faded, replaced by incredible sorrow. "Hinata," he groaned, approaching her. She was pale, paler than usual, a complete, though faded, white. "I'm sorry," said Tsunade, patting his shoulder gently. There was nothing you could do. I could have protected her," he moaned feebly. "No, Naruto," she said gently, "despite your cage-bun shin, you can't be everywhere at once." He wasn't convinced, and pulled a chair to sit by Hinata's unconscious form. "Hinata," he whispered, grasping her frigid hand, "I'm here for you." Weakly, she moaned in her sleep, "Naruto-kun." Watching his surprise, Shizune informed, "She's been moaning your name every so often." "She must think I'm a failure too," he replied, to Shizune's disappointment. "I'm sorry, Naruto," said Sakura, "but visiting hours are over. You can come back tomorrow." "Fine," he said, and, with a heaving sigh, lifted himself from the chair. Giving one last mournful glance at the girl on the bed, he dejectedly let himself be escorted out by Sakura. "Naruto," she said gently as they walked out of the hospital, "you really have to understand that this isn't your fault. Bad things, they just happen, you know? It's tragic, but we can't always stop them." Naruto really didn't feel like debating this with her, so merely gave the reply, "I know. Thanks." Seeing a bit of relief cross her features, he added, "Listen, I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to make dinner tonight with Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke. Let them know for me, will you?" "I understand," she responded softly. She gave him an encouraging smile before saying, "She'll be okay, Naruto. I'll see you later," and walked back towards the hospital. He waved to her before beginning the stroll back to his apartment. "Oh, Hinata," he breathed, removing his forehead protector and rubbing his temples. What a world this was. It was an absolute atrocity for such a thing to happen to anyone, but Hinata. She was special. She was innocent, pure. Naruto was certain she didn't have a malicious thought in her mind. Without even thinking, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the only other picture besides his team's that he carried. It was of him and Hinata, on one of the numerous days they'd spent together in the past year. That day, after a hearty lunch, they'd found an excitable little man on the street taking and selling photographs of people who said he couldn't resist taking a picture of the two of them. And so, arm in arm, dopey smiles on both, Hinata and Naruto posed for the camera, purchasing the picture at a small fee. His heart swelled and ached with the photo. They had been so happy that day, the two friends. And what had become of her? Some sick bastard's undeserving prey? Naruto couldn't wait for Kakashi's hounds to find the son of a bitch so that Naruto could rip him apart, piece by piece, until he felt 10 times the despair he'd caused Hinata. Finally, Naruto had reached his apartment. Turning the key inside the lock, he swiftly entered and collapsed on his bed. Hours passed as he tossed and turned, reviewing every part of the day, praying for sleep to come so that he could visit her once again the next day. He kept his promise, meeting Shizune outside Hinata's room the next day. "Hey, can I go in?" he asked, heading for the entrance. "Yes, Naruto-kun," Shizune answered, opening the door. She woke up hours ago, but she's refused to eat anything. The two entered the room to find a nurse attempting to feed Hinata what appeared to be a fruity mush with a spoon. "Please, Hinata-san, you have to eat." Hinata refused, shaking her head slowly. The nurse stood and walked to Naruto and Shizune. "I can't seem to make her eat," she whispered. "We'll have to feed her through an IV." "Give me the food," said Naruto, softly but sternly. Taking the bowl in hand, he added, "Now step aside," and slowly made his way toward Hinata's bed. Hearing footsteps, Hinata looked towards the source and upon recognizing it, her eyelids shot open. Naruto-kun? She croaked, her voice weak. Hey, Hinata, he replied gently. It's good to see you. Don't look at me, she muttered, turning back away from him. What? But Hinata, don't look at me. She shrieked and buried her face in her pillow, sobbing. Exhaling, he once again took his seat beside her and muttered, okay. If you want, I won't look at you. She uncovered her tear-stained face, and he held out a spoonful of mush. I need you to eat this. Shifting a bit, she did not look him in the eye, but allowed her face to be seen. He said, emphasizing the word, need you to eat this. She hesitated for but a moment before opening her mouth ever so slightly. There we go, he muttered, lifting the spoon to her mouth, allowing her to swish the mush around for a bit before she swallowed it. The nurse stood in awe next to Shizune. I can't, how did he do it? I've been trying to get her to eat all morning. Shizune had too been stymied initially, but now understood. Of course, we've been saying, you must eat, you have to eat or else, but that isn't what she needs. She can't handle being coerced like that. Instead, Naruto-kun told her that she's needed, that she has worth, even if it's something that's small. But how? The nurse asked. How could he have known that? How could he have understood her? It's because he knows that pain, answered Shizune, the pain of being alone. Hiyashi, you can't just barge in there. Came Tsunade's voice suddenly from the hall, alarming the occupants of the room. I'll do what I want, Hokage-sama, this is my daughter. Hiyashi roared back, barging into the room with Neji and a few other Hyuga guardsmen, Tsunade trailing behind. Father, she breathed as he scrutinized her, bearing a scowl. He turned away and Hinata felt her throat start to close. I see, he said to Tsunade, so it is true. She has let herself be ruined. Hinata felt her blood solidify. A vein throbbed in Tsunade's forehead. What do you mean, let herself be ruined? How could you say that about your own daughter? Daughter? Hiyashi asked coldly, brow raised. I have no daughter. Aside from their barely visible appearance, the clear liquid on Hinata's face gave no evidence for its existence aside from the escaping her lips, audible only by Naruto. Hiyashi-sama, Neji started, how could you? Hinata-sama is. Silence, Neji. Hiyashi shouted, wielding the hand seal for Neji's cursed one in a threatening manner. Remember your place, lest you suffer the consequences. Neji, fists balled and teeth gritted, grumbled, yes sir. Hiyashi, I don't know what the hell you're playing at, Tsunade yelled, but Hinata does not deserve being disowned. Hokage-sama, you have no place in the affairs of the noble clans, Hiyashi responded cruelly. As the head of the clan, what I decide to do with that failure is of my concern alone. Naruto shot up, enraged. You son of a bitch, he roared, meeting Hiyashi face to face, snatching his collar. You're the sickest, most cold-hearted asshole I've ever met, and I've met quite a lot. Hinata is a wonderful person, and I don't care what clan you lead, I don't even care if you're the king of the goddamned world. You don't have the right to take away her freedom. Said Hiyashi impassively, you must not want that hand, brat. Baring his fangs at Hiyashi, Naruto growled, God damn you. But stopped as he felt Tsunade taking hold of his arm. She looked sadly into his eyes. Stop, you'll only make things worse. Naruto, calmed by her tone, released Hiyashi's collar. Good move, Hokage-sama, Hiyashi said, turning to leave. If you hadn't intervened, I wouldn't have been responsible for the Kyuubi brat's fate. With that, Hiyashi and the rest of the Hyuga left, Neji giving a regretful parting look towards Hinata. We'll do everything in our power for Hinata, Tsunade told the anguished Naruto. We'll keep her here in the hospital until she's recovered. No, said Naruto with a shake of his head, I'll take her. She'll stay at my place. Naruto-kun, I must strongly advise against this, Shizune began. I'll allow it, Tsunade cut through. I believe you can take good care of her. Thanks, Baon, he said, and moved for the door. When you can release her? Today, said Tsunade, I've had Sakura and Shizune, my best people, heal her, so she's okay, as far as her wounds are concerned. As for her mental health, for whatever reason, Tsunade did not want to give away Hinata's obvious feelings for Naruto. She feels she has strong connection with you and you alone. You're all she has, Naruto. Don't screw this up. I won't, he said, turning the knob of the door and exiting. I'll meet her at the front door. A few hours later, Hinata, clad in her washed and repaired clothing, emerged from the hospital with Sakura at her side. "Here she is, Naruto," Sakura said, leading Hinata to him. "Make sure she drinks a lot of liquid, gets plenty of rest, and please, take good care of her, okay? I don't go back on my way, remember?" he said, with the best grin he could muster under the circumstances. "Alright, come on, Hinata." He held out his hand toward her. "Let's go." She did not accept his hand, nor did she look at him. Her head remained sculpted to face the ground. A sting at his heart, he retracted his hand. "Alright, then, let's go. We'll see you around, Sakura-chan." "See you," Sakura replied and watched as Naruto and Hinata walked off. As they walked, Naruto noticed Hinata's posture. In addition to her neck craned down, she was completely slumped over, her hands fastened together, which in turn caused her shoulders to be completely hunched together. Even her knees kept bumping from her pigeon-toed stance. She's automatically shut her body up, so that the world can't get to her. God, I have to do everything I can to help her. Naruto thought, his confidence renewed. She's the only person who's ever accepted me as I am. I've never had to prove anything to her. She gave me my confidence back when I fought Neji, she helped me bring Sasuke back. She's always understood me. I owe it to her to help her through this, no matter what it takes. As Naruto flicked on the lights to his apartment, he looked around. Well, here it is. It's not much, but I hope you'll be okay with it. He took her a few steps around the small apartment, reaching the bed. Here's where you'll be sleeping. I'll take the couch. Leaning over the mattress, he fluffed up the pillow and pulled back the blanket. There, all set. Taking the hint, Hinata laid herself down seemingly without acknowledging Naruto's existence or actions. As soon as she had settled in, facing the wall, Naruto tucked her in and pulled down the shades, allowing her some rest. Naruto sat by her side for a good while until he heard her steady breath indicating she was sleeping. Exhaling in relief, he stood and began his quest of systematically removing any and all objects in his possession sharp enough to break the skin. As a shinobi of his caliber, this included all knives, shuriken, and even weapon-summoning scrolls, forcing him to continue this task until the late hours of the night. Finally, after he'd collected the last kunai, he heard a knocking at the door. Answering it, Sakura appeared in his doorway. "Sakura-chan, what are you doing here?" he asked, puzzled. She held a few large bags, each containing various items. "I'm here to give you these," she said, placing the bags inside. Two contained some clothing for her. "I figured she'd need it if she stays here long enough. Sorry if they don't fit perfectly, I tried to guess her size." "This one contains ingredients for food, actual food," she said, pointing at a bag filled with several boxes and cartons, "not your perpetually eaten ramen. And last, but not least, I thought I should give you these." Sakura revealed two wrist bracelets from her pocket. They bore the leaf symbol. They're chakra-restricting bands. Hinata is a master of the Juken, to the point where she can sharpen the chakra enough to slice through many sturdy objects. These won't reduce her chakra to a non-functional level, but they will prevent her from refining it to cutting power. In her condition, she might. "I know," said Naruto, accepting the bracelets. "Do you happen to have another pair?" he asked. Yeah," said Sakura, confused. "I thought in case they break or something, I'd give them to you, but... Can I have them now?" "Sure, but why?" she asked, handing out the extra pair. "I have something planned," he said, stowing them in his jacket. "Well, alright, just try not to screw up the cooking too much, okay?" she smirked. Yeah, he waved her off, grinning. "I think I can get good at it pretty quickly." They exchanged farewells and Sakura was off, leaving Naruto with her gifts. The first thing planned, he headed back to Hinata. Lifting her wrists with absolute meticulous precision, he slipped the bands over them, and then proceeded to place the extra pair on his own. His chakras slightly disturbed, Naruto figured he would simply have to get used to that feeling. Next, he carefully laid out a nice outfit for Hinata to wear when she woke up hanging on his dresser and scribbled a short next to it. That done, he picked up one of the packages of food Sakura had left him, pancake mix, incidentally, and muttered, "Fingers in a cross, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." Leaving a few to watch over Hinata, Naruto, cramped, sidled out of his apartment, leaving the original pancake box carefully on his dinner table. For the next several hours, Naruto practiced preparing the food, over and over, gaining exponential experience, until he felt sufficiently skilled at this feat. And so, dispersing his doppelgangers and feeling the now familiar rush of mental fatigue, he returned yet again to Hinata's side, praying with all his might that her condition would improve when the sun came round. Hinata, meanwhile, suffered as she slept, her subconscious preying on her weakened heart. The hands, those terrible hands. They were everywhere, all over her body, invading every crevice and surface. She was helpless against them, and from every angle came her father's booming voice, "You let yourself be ruined." She was being strangled, suffocating from the pain in her heart and her body. There was no hope at all. She awoke, gasping and panting, instinctively covering herself with a blanket. The odd sensation of not knowing where she was hit her like a punch in the face, but she overcame it quickly, realizing, to her dismay, that the last few days were real and that she was no burden on her beloved Naruto's shoulders. Soon, she realized that Naruto himself had stayed in a seat next to her, watching over her the entire night. Guilt tore at her as his eyes blinked open and he smiled a sleepy grin at her. "Hey there, you're awake, good," he said, standing up and stretching. "Well, I'll just go and make us some breakfast and you can get changed." As he walked out of the room, Hinata wondered what exactly she would change into until she noticed the outfit on the dresser. A light yellow sundress, with a few small frills here and there, accompanied by a white blouse. She picked up the note that rested beside the clothing, reading, "Hinata, I thought these clothes would make you look and feel pretty. Naruto." She didn't smile, nor did she feel any happiness from this note, just more guilt from the thought that he had gone through more trouble for her. Worthless, she thought, unzipping her jacket, just another worthless chapter in your worthless life. Naruto stood over his oven, flipping the pancake he'd whipped up, pleased at how it had turned out. He hadn't burned it and he'd managed to cook it until, as the instructions ordered, it was light and fluffy. Footsteps from the bedroom alerted him to Hinata's presence. With a look, he saw her in the doorway, dressed in the clothes he'd given her, but carrying herself the same way. Head down, hands compressed, she tied her hair back in a long ponytail. Naruto guessed she didn't want her long, silken locks interrupting her meal. He smiled, though it betrayed his heart. Hurt though he was by her condition, he smiled, hoping that the lack of gloom on his face would spread to her. "Oh," he said, setting the pancake down on a plate. "You look nice." She did not react, so he created a bunchen to pour her some juice, thankfully bought only few days before, and another to pour the syrup while he cut her meal. "Well, dig in," he said, laying out a small, dull, plastic fork and retracting the knife he'd used, lest she misuse it. Wielding the fork, she noticed for the first time the small bits of cloth around each wrist. But as she raised her arms to examine them, she noticed that Naruto too bore these odd bands. Naruto pretended not to notice. Internally, however, he breathed a sigh of relief that his ruse had worked. Naruto had wielded the principle of monkey see monkey do. If Hinata saw that if Naruto also wore chakra inhibitors, she would figure they were okay. After she ate, the day progressed in a similar, silent manner. Naruto attempted, every few moments, to engage her in conversation, trying to see if anything would bring her around, with no success. Hinata stayed resting in her bed mainly, except to use the bathroom. The next few days did not yield any progress either. It had become a routine for Naruto. Get up, feed Hinata, tend to the house, rest by her side, and repeat. Eventually, Sakura came around to alert him that Team Kakashi had received a mission. "We can keep Hinata at the hospital until we get back," she assured him. "No," he said. "No, no," he repeated. "Tell Tsunade-ban, I'm retiring." "From what?" asked Sakura, puzzled. "From being a shinobi." Sakura gaped at him. But, no buts. "But what about your dream? You won't become Hokage." "I know," he said, giving her a sad smile. "But this is more important." Sakura frowned at him. "Alright, I'll tell her," she said, and left. "So that's it, Tsunade said as Sakura finished. "That idiot." She pulled a document from her stack of forms. "What are you doing, Tsunade-sama?" asked Sakura. "I'm temporarily removing Naruto and Hinata from their respective teams and giving each of them an indefinite paid vacation." Handing the form to Sakura, she told, "Give this to Shizune, will you? And do me a favor, don't tell the elders about this." Sakura, an excited smile upon her lips, grabbed the form, answered, "Yes ma'am," and ran to find her senpai. At the apartment, Naruto stood outside his bathroom, awaiting Hinata so that if anything bad happened, he'd know. He was relatively certain nothing would happen, but he'd made sure to take out the shower curtain cord just in case. Hinata exited her bath, drying off and dressing herself. She was about to leave the room when she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The word, worthless, had rung out in her head constantly ever since her rape, but as she viewed her reflection, it grew 1,000 times more terrible. Worthless, it hissed, worthless, useless whore. Enraged at her own visage, she raised a fist and struck the mirror, glass shards embedding themselves in her fingers, crimson running thickly from her fingers. Naruto nearly broke down the door in entering, crying, "Hinata!" At sight of her hand, he gingerly clenched it, immediately taking out some bandages from his pack. "Oh my god, Hinata, I'm so sorry," he said, carefully removing each flake and bandaging her wounds. After the worst of it was patched, he produced a troop of clones to find and alert Sakura of this incident. "I'm so sorry," he repeated, "I was stupid, I forgot to take out the mirror. I failed you. I'm a failure as a person, as your friend. I'm worthless." "No," she said, so softly that Naruto was not sure she'd said it at all. "What? You're not," she explained. "You're a good friend." Hearing her speak made Naruto ecstatic. "Progress. Actual progress. Hinata," he said, wanting to make absolutely certain, you just spoke." She nodded, looking him in the eye. She didn't say any more as he escorted her to her bed, nor did she when Sakura arrived and healed Hinata. Luckily, the wound was small enough so that it didn't leave a scar. It was then that Sakura told them of the arrangement Tsunade had fixed, making Naruto smile while Hinata's head merely rose slightly. Sakura did not miss Hinata's actions and noted that even this minor reaction to another's words marked improvement. She left, giving Naruto a short congratulation. As the days became weeks and soon months, Hinata continued to improve, engaging more and more in conversation and even allowing Naruto to touch her lightly. He would keep a cage-bun Shin in the house to keep her company when he went out and bought groceries. On one such occasion, he contemplated his and Hinata's relationship. "I think this is the right brand of pancakes she likes. She's been doing a lot better as of late," he thought. "She sure is great. Kind, smart, beautiful, a bunch of kunoichi must be jealous of her, and she must be a target for all the guys." He stopped dead in his tracks. "Oh god. I think I want her." His heart started pumping rapidly. "She's been raped and I think about dating her? What the fuck is wrong with me?" No, he said, shaking his head and calming himself. "Now that I think about it, I must have felt this way about her for a long, long time. I mean, she and I have been spending a lot of time together this year. I've just always had this tunnel vision for Sakura-chan. I guess I ignored my own heart. But it doesn't matter. I can't tell her, not while she's like this. Oh well, at least I'm helping her get better." Despite all of Hinata's improvement, however, one thing was still missing. "So, Hinata," said Naruto, chewing some ramen while Hinata munched her rice. "What do you say we head out and get some groceries today?" Hinata paused before saying, I can't, Naruto-kun," she said, taking her gaze away from him. "I'm sorry. Don't be," he said, gripping her hand, "if you're uncomfortable, I can wait." She blushed a little and the corners of his mouth curved up. Naruto was shocked. "Hinata, you smiled." Her blush deepened substantially as she said, "Naruto-kun, you always make me smile." Initially a little surprised at this comment, Naruto, grinning, scratched the back of his head sheepishly and replied, "Well, Hinata, you always make me smile too." A tomato would envy the color Hinata became. She found herself breathing heavily as she stared into his eyes, his wonderful blue eyes. She felt she could lose herself in them, swim forever in his aqua spheres. She didn't know it, but Naruto loved her eyes as well. Despite their pupil-less state, he adored their lilac centers. She continued to match his gaze until, acting instinctively, she reached over the dinner table and brushed her lips against his ever so lightly. Naruto found himself in a rare instance of him blushing. Hinata immediately pulled back, waving her arms frantically and screeching, "Oh gosh, I'm so sorry, I don't know what came over me, I just..." "No," he cut through softly, it's fine. I liked it." Her eyes widened as her voice reduced to a whisper. "Why you did?" He nodded. "Oh, Naruto-kun, She sighed and leaned to him once more, crushing his lips against hers again, but kissing him fully, with all she was. He kissed back, cupping her cheeks and standing, pulling her up with him so that they could be closer. Take it slow, he told himself, running his hands down her back, be gentle. Soon, however, he found Hinata's tongue forcing its way into his mouth. He was all too eager to reciprocate. Suddenly, however, a notion struck Hinata so forcefully that her mouth was practically jettisoned from their embrace as she cried. This is just for pity, she sobbed, I'll never forgive you. The words seared her throat crawling out of her voice box, but she had to say it, to know where she stood once and for all. Naruto, eyes wide and mouth still open, was speechless for only a few seconds until he uttered, Hinata, in this past year, I've gotten to know you, your mind, your kindness, your likes and dislikes, everything. Not even taking care of you all this time has changed my mind about this. He leaned in deep, just a hair's width from her nose. I love you, Hinata. There's no denying it. Her tears had stopped, but resumed, products of the immense euphoria her heart emanated. She slung her arms around Naruto's neck tightly and closed the gap, driving her tongue inside his mouth yet again. Naruto, as he swept the tears from Hinata's cheeks, felt a similar sense of exhilaration, happily playing with her tongue as she did the same. She started to unzip her jacket, but stopped midway, pulling back again. What's the matter? Naruto asked. Are you sure you want me? She asked. I'm tainted, unchaste, ruined, she finished with a gulp. Naruto shook his head. Hinata, I don't care what's happened in the past. I don't care what your father said. Stroking a raven strand, he said, you're still pure, innocent to me. Without a word, Hinata once more resumed their pleasure and completely zipped off the jacket, Naruto pointing towards the bedroom. She followed his guidance toward the bed straight away, discarding her jacket and fishnet shirt to the floor. Soon after, his clothes were removed as well, with her pants and underwear joining them. Now, they were stripped down to just their bodies, their raw, passionate forms. It was just then that Naruto recalled a teaching of Jiraiya's. Every man should learn to please a woman, Naruto, said a drunk Jiraiya one night after training. I don't get it. Why the hell do I need to learn these stupid techniques? Asked an indignant Naruto. Imagine you're sent into a territory where you need to seduce a powerful woman. Okay, I'm imagining it, now what? These techniques will make any woman putty in your hand. I would really just rather get back to training, Naruto grumbled. Okay, said Jiraiya, supercilious. I guess you don't want to learn how to upgrade your Rasengan, then. Fine, shouted Naruto hotly, just teach me the stupid tricks. Naruto situated himself above Hinata, inspecting her glorious, voluptuous form. These techniques function like the 8 gates of chakra, except that you perform them on someone else. They can, however, be just as dangerous, in the wrong hands. Yeah, I'm sure, muttered Naruto, sotto voce. What was that? Nothing. They act by inserting chakra into your lady's body via a refined chakra blade, finer than that of a syringe. Don't worry. It won't hurt, and the more chakra you put in, the better the effect. The first one, and this is one you'll like, I know, is transmitted through the mouth. Naruto focused as hard as he could as he explored Hinata's mouth and, using all the control he could, beamed as great an amount of chakra he could without losing the control into a point in Hinata's mouth. She immediately gasped, eyes wide, and Naruto smiled as he saw her nipples stand erect. Thanks, Ero Sennin, he thought. I guess those hours and hours of practicing were worth it after all. What was that? She panted through a series of labored breaths. Just something I picked up, he told her. The second one is actually in 2 places, directed 45 degrees and 5 inches down and out from each nipple, Jiraiya explained. Naruto ran his hands over her breast, taking the opportunity to squeeze them gently, sucking the one tip while toying with the other, and relishing Hinata's pleasured reactions. Oh ho ho, she moaned, blood rushing from the effects of the first point. Giddy, Naruto followed Jiraiya's instructions as he remembered them, approximating 45 degrees and blasting an enormous amount of chakra into each node. Hinata shrieked, contorting with UAL ecstasy. Naruto felt his erection pulsate heavily. The third one is 8 inches directly below her solar plexus. I warn you, Naruto, do not go beyond the third one the first time around. Why? What'll happen? The first 3 are enough to make the woman feel insane with erotic thrill. After that, well, most women can't handle it with anything before the first time, and their minds raise their standards so that they cannot achieve release by anything less than what was provided. And God help you if you go to the 8th and final point. Why is that? Naruto asked, almost afraid of the truth. It will shatter her mind completely, taking away her freedom and making her your slave so that she will live only to pleasure and be pleasured by you. It's a treacherous thing, and it is the reason these techniques are only taught by the worthy, to the worthy. Then what's the point of the 8th one? The mind shattering can be overcome. If, before the intercourse, the woman loves the man completely and freely, with all her heart and soul, her mind will override the shattering. She will retain her independence, her standards will remain the same, but she will be taken to a place of the highest state a woman can go. Every nerve in her body reacts to the pleasure center of the brain at once. It is something few ever feel, and as the man making love to her, you will feel it equally. These memories made Naruto even more excited. I can't be too careful, he thought, and counted 8 inches from her solar plexus. Mustering all the chakra he could, he forced the energy into the spot. Hinata's body froze for a moment and then began to wildly spasm, her hands grabbing and tearing the sheets. Naruto-kun, she screamed, please, I need it now. With a few quick seals, Naruto cast a protection jutsu on himself and thrust away at Hinata. Each pounding moment sending enough bliss through her to make her writhe even more, and it wasn't long until she had an earth-shattering climax, over and over, with Naruto following closely behind. Their names rang out to each other, crystallizing the moment in their minds for all eternity. Eventually, it subsided and he rolled over, holding her tightly to him so that they could fit. Hinata, he whispered, I love you. I'll love you too, she answered, gasping for breath, so much, an unbelievable amount. I'm so glad you're finally back, he added. Me too, she agreed, me too, and promptly fell to sleep. Naruto watched her drift off before chasing after soon enough. Naruto awoke to the warm sensation that was Hinata's back pressed against his chest. Briefly suffering the sensation of temporary morning amnesia, the memories of last night flooded to him, lulling him into a sweet reverie. He tightened his embrace around his still slumbering love, thrusting his nose into the nape of her neck, inhaling the sweet fragrance she exuded. She was still lightly damp with the sweat generated from last night's affairs, and that, combined with her natural scent of wildflowers, produced an aroma of spice and flavor so incredible Naruto couldn't resist but give her a small peck, stroking her long raven tresses. Like electricity to wire, this seemed to jumpstart Hinata's mind, waking her from her rest. She blinked slowly for a few seconds and then noticed Naruto's arms around her. Naruto-kun, yeah? Was last night real? She asked timidly. He leaned in closely, whispering to her ear, completely. She turned around so she could face him. Excitedly, she breathed, then that means you. Yeah, he said, smiling softly. I love you, Hinata. You're the love of my life. Before the sentence had even been completed, tears of joy had sprung forth from Hinata's eyes. Oh, Naruto-kun, she cried, kissing him and forcing her tongue through his lips, swishing it around his mouth as fast as she could. Naruto had not been expecting such a shock this early in the morning and was left dazed when her mouth left his. I love you. I love you so much that I used to faint at the sight of you. Naruto grinned. When did you start? He asked gently. Since when have you loved me? Hinata placed a finger to her chin. Let's see, do you remember the second week we were in the academy together, and we had our first shuriken practice? Yeah, about 6 minutes into that, she answered sweetly. Naruto gaped at her. Mind boggled, he said, but that was years and years ago. Yes, she replied, still charmingly. From the moment I saw you, I knew you were special, because you were like me. Everyone called you a failure, everyone rejected you, and yet you persisted. You inspired me to move forward, to change myself, and for that, I loved you. You were more precious to me than the entire world. You still are. Hinata? He pulled her even closer to him, resting her head on his shoulder. I'm sorry. Brow raised, she asked, why's that? I was stupid. Really, really stupid. I called you plain and timid, but really, you were this wonderful girl all along, and I didn't notice. I'm sorry, he repeated, giving her a squeeze. It's okay, she murmured, returning the embrace. So, how about you? When did you realize your own feelings? Woo, he said, I guess, I only realized them like a few months ago, but when I think about it, I've had them for a while. Maybe even a short while after Ero Sennin's death. I said it's okay, she reassured him, we have each other now. He nodded, pleased. So, she said, leaning back so she could face him, what do you want to do now? He smiled. Leaning back and yawning, he began flapping his arms wildly as he fell off the bed with a loud thunk. Concerned, Hinata looked over the edge to see him chortling as he rubbed the bump that had appeared on his head. Looks like I'll need a bigger bed, he said, lifting himself up. What do you say we go shopping for one today? Fear etched itself in Hinata's features. A bead of sweat trickled down her temple. In a hushed voice, she said, Naruto-kun. You know I can't do that. You can, he protested, taking her hand. I believe in you. You'll be okay, I promise. Her breathing grew unsteady as she replied, but what if? No buts, he interrupted, whatever happens, I'll protect you with my life, no matter what. She drew a deep, long breath. Naruto-kun's words, she thought, his face, his eyes, his stance, everything is telling me to trust him. Maybe, just maybe. Oh okay, she gulped, lifting herself from the bed. I'll do it. He smiled and then reached for his pants. Alright. Let's get dressed and we'll go, he said, pulling the clothing over himself. She nodded and followed suit, grabbing her clothes. A few minutes later, they were dressed and groomed, standing right in front of Naruto's apartment door. Okay, he said, grasping the knob. Are you ready? She shook her head. No, she said, but let's do it anyway. Nodding, he opened the door and walked through and she, breathing deep once more, stepped through quickly. You see? He said, gesturing to the outside. Nothing bad out here. She gazed at the scene before her. The streets were bustling with the various inhabitants of Konoha, children playing, people talking, but most of all, Hinata noticed the weather. The sun was shining radiantly and Hinata, facing the sun, took a lungful of fresh air. Despite her worrying and fidgeting, she smiled and turned to Naruto, offering her hand. Let's go, she said, and Naruto, returning the expression, accepted her palm, clutching her palm and leading her through the streets. So where are we going first? Hinata asked as they walked. First, we gotta visit Ino's shop, he said, and a minute later, they entered the Yamanaka flower shop. Welcome, custom, Ino began, but pressed her hand against her mouth when she caught sight of her patrons. Oh my god, she whispered. She jumped over the counter and embraced Hinata in a hug as tightly as possible. Hinata, she cried, releasing her grip and inspecting her up and down. I haven't seen you in so long. Look at you, you look amazing. Hinata smiled sweetly as she could while surprised at this outburst. Thank you, Ino-chan, she said, bowing. And look at me, gawking at you. Come, tell me what you need. She asked, returning to her position behind the counter. We'll need a dozen roses, please, said Naruto. Sure thing. I have some in the bag, if you'll follow me please, Naruto, she replied, waving him over. I'll be right back. He nodded to Hinata, and then walked towards Ino, closing the door behind him. Okay, she said in a quiet tone, cutting the roses, the real reason I called you back here. Well, I heard what happened to her, the rape and disownment, she's a bastard, by the way, and considering Hinata's character. I'm sorry to say this, but I never would have thought she could recover. But you, she pointed at Naruto, you somehow brought her back from the brink. No one in this village could have done that. Not Kurenai-sensei, not Kiba, not Shino, no one. I used to think it was crazy and stupid when you babbled on about being Hokage and whatnot, but really, after seeing what you've done today, I wholeheartedly believe you could lead this village. Naruto grinned. Thanks, but really, I was just helping a friend. I know, she replied, bundling the roses, and that's what makes it amazing. Thank you so much, Naruto. Don't mention it, he said, taking the flowers, thanks for these. He walked out of the back room and said to Hinata, okay, we're ready. Let's go. As they stepped out the door, he added, see ya, Ino, and Hinata waved, leaving a contented Ino waiting for her next customer. Hinata had been a bit nervous entering the shop but relaxed a bit as she left. She had been afraid that everyone would view her as a pathetic wreck, but Ino seemed positively delighted to see her. She was probably just being nice, Hinata rationalized in doubt. So where are we going with these roses, Naruto-kun? We're going to see an old friend, Naruto said solemnly, Hinata on his left arm and the roses on his right. Hinata instantly knew what he meant, and her thoughts were confirmed as they reached the Konoha Memorial Graveyard. They stopped at a statue and Hinata took in its sight. There it was, a young Jiraiya, portrayed in shining black stone, perched on a gold frog, grinning confidently. The plaque, Hinata saw, read, Jiraiya of the legendary Sannin, the gallant sage of Mount Myoboku, the demon among the toads, the magnificent teacher of the greatest alive and dead. For his honorable works, in life and at death, we remember him for eternity. The inscription was so fitting. Naruto had initially wondered whether or not Jiraiya had composed it himself before dying. It constantly made him nostalgic regarding their training, and with his newly recalled lessons on how to please the pharaoh, Naruto nearly felt physically compelled to visit the memorial. Now, as he laid the flowers upon the base of the grave, he noticed a second bouquet, not a day old. Bon, Naruto thought with a sad smile. Bent down, he read the simple tag inside Tsunade's flowers, I'm so sorry. Love forever, Tsunade Heim. It seemed she still felt a twinge of guilt every now and then, even well over a year later. Naruto was unsurprised. If the death of Dan on top of her little brothers had been enough to send her, a medic, into a state of hemophobia, certainly Jiraiya's death would linger longer than 12 months. With a deep breath, Naruto began to speak. Hey, Ero Sennin, it's nice to see you again. Sorry I didn't come visit more recently, I've just been a little busy. That reminds me, he said, with a glance at Hinata, you were right. You were absolutely right. He closed his eyes in remembrance. How's it going, Naruto? Asked a still inebriated Jiraiya as Naruto practiced his new task. Screw off. Naruto bit back, molding chakra. Oh, hey now, there's no need to be so angry, Jiraiya said pleasantly. You never know when you'll need these techniques. You might be at your little flat one night, holding close to you a glorious, ebon-haired, bright-eyed lady who loves you very much, and then, if you're lucky, you'll get to use the 8th gate. Few in several lifetimes ever get to witness such thing. Naruto, eyebrows up, gawked at Jiraiya in confusion. What the hell are you talking about, Ero Sennin? Jiraiya sighed, rolling over in his sleeping bag. Never mind. Keep it going, and when you've mastered it, I'll help you power up that Rasengan. I'm gonna take a nap in the meantime. Yes, sir, Naruto grumbled resentfully. Jiraiya yawned. You're a good kid, Minato, he mumbled quietly. What was that? Naruto asked, pausing his practice, but Jiraiya had already drifted off and was snoring heavily. Damn it, he said, resuming, his stupid wheezing's gonna distract me. Well, said Naruto, bowing to the statue, thanks again. I'll see you later, Ero Sennin. Take care. Hinata stepped towards the stone colossus. I'd like to say something to him, Naruto-kun, she said, if that's okay. He nodded, and she faced Jiraiya's effigy. Thank you, Jiraiya-sama, she murmured. You gave Naruto-kun his power, his dreams, and with that, you allowed him to give hopes and dreams to others. I didn't really know you, but I know you were a good man. I'm in your debt forever. She retreated from the statue. Okay, she said, clutching Naruto once more, let's go by that bed. He smiled and pulled her away, giving one last satisfied look towards the monument before leaving. They arrived at the furniture store a few minutes later and began inspecting various mattresses. Naruto, placing his hand on one possible bed, asked, what do you think of this one, Hinata? I'm not sure, whatever you like is fee. She squealed as Naruto hoisted her up and tossed her on the bed, leaving her to bounce for a few seconds, first shrieking and then giggling, before settling down, panting. When she recovered, she said, this one is great. Naruto smiled. Great, now we just need a frame, yeesh, that, plus the double bed and the sheets. With a grimace, he revealed his new froggy wallet, taking out the checkbook from within. That's gonna run me up, he muttered. Hinata frowned, ashamed. I'm sorry, I'm making you spend this much. His expression immediately reverted. Hey, no, it's okay. I was going to throw that old thing out anyway. I've had it since I could remember, so it's really short on me anyway, and I dunno if you noticed, but there's this spring that's popped in it, and I keep getting poked. Really annoying, he emphasized. Besides, he said, taking his arm around her, any expense is worth it for you. Poking her cheek, he added with a grin, now show me that smile, Despite herself, she obliged, beaming lightly. Alright then, let's get this bed, shall we? They finished selecting the frame and sheets and Naruto spoke to the clerk. Okay, I think that's it. Very good, Naruto-san, the clerk replied. Would you like us to deliver it now? Naruto shook his head. Nah, I've got my own shipping service, he said, placing his hands into his familiar cross. Taju Kage Bun Shin no Jutsu, Mass Shadow Doppelganger Technique. Instantly, several duplicates of Naruto materialized in the room. Alright, boys, he directed, take the stuff and go home. Saluting briefly, the clones organized themselves and exited with Naruto's purchases. The original Naruto and Hinata left soon after, leaving the clerk more than a little disturbed. Hey, Hinata, Naruto said as they walked, what's the date? The 19th, I think, she replied. Great, said Naruto, clenching an excited fist, today's payday. Let's go see Tsunade-ban, she said nervously, pushing her fingers together. Maybe we could just go home. We've been out for a while. Naruto sighed. I promise you it'll be our last stop. Then we can return, okay? He wanted to push her, just the smallest bit, every day. She clamped her eyes tight for a few seconds while Naruto waited with bated breath. Oh, okay, she said finally. Let's go see Hokage-sama. His smile returned and quickly, he grasped her palm and hurried off to the building with the kanji of fire on its balcony. And so, the documents recovered without any witnesses, Team Kakashi was able to retreat from the land of water. Sakura finished informing Tsunade alongside Sasuke and Kakashi. Excellent, Tsunade said. Satisfied at the report, you, Sasuke, and Kakashi will receive payment with a bonus for a perfectly executed S-class mission and, of course, a portion will be distributed to Naruto as part of his paid leave. Suddenly, a knock came at the office door. Yes? Come in? Hey guys, Naruto said, entering. How are you all doing? Well, speak of the devil, Tsunade muttered. I assume you're here for your check? Good timing. Yeah, it's great. I just bought a new double bed, he added with a smirk. Tsunade did a double take, but smiled immediately after. That's good to hear, very good to hear, she said, searching the drawer for Naruto's payment. Naruto glanced at the door and gestured to come in. It's okay, he said gently. Slowly, Hinata entered and though kept her head down, she did utter, hello, very one. The room fell completely silent. Sakura stared at the couple, eyes wide and mouth agape, while Kakashi and Sasuke merely peered from the side, brows elevated. Tsunade, on the other hand, merely watched, gladdened by the sight. Oh my god, Sakura started softly, hyperventilating, Hinata, you're out here, out of the house, and I think what Sakura means to say, Kakashi cut through, is welcome home, Hinata-san. Sasuke gave an agreeing nod. Thank you, she whispered with a little bow. Tsunade closed her eyes in contemplation and, reaching a decision, opened them. Alright, Naruto, this was supposed to be given to you when you turned 18, but since your birthday is in a few months, and, considering the circumstances, I suppose I can let you have it a little bit early. That is, she said, eyeing the shinobi before her suspiciously, if you five can keep your mouths shut about it. Said Naruto, giving her a quizzical gaze, don't want to be rude there, Ba-chan, but, what the hell are you talking about? Naruto, she said, very seriously. Did you honestly think that, with Jiraiya as your godfather, the only things you'd receive would be a book and a few pieces of paper? It is a good book, Kakashi piped up. Said Naruto, puzzled, I hadn't really thought about it. Oh, come on, Tsunade blurted, you must have seen his checkbook at some point during your time together. Naruto indeed did recall, during the search for Tsunade, incidentally, goggling at the sheer number of zeros in his sensei's account. What are you saying? He asked softly. It's your inheritance, Naruto, she answered, pulling out a very ornately designed envelope from a safe under her desk. It was sealed with a gold and red spiral leaf insignia, the symbol of the entire village. It's finally time for you to open it. You're the only one who can. Naruto, hands quaking, took the envelope between his fingers and placed his thumb on the seal. In a flash of blue light, it dissolved, the paper lifting, revealing the check within. There it was, as unbelievable as it appeared. His name as the recipient and Jiraiya's as the sender. The amount was easily 10 times Naruto's current savings balance. Naruto began to feel dizzy, slightly relieved as Hinata's hand landed on his shoulder. Oh, My fucking god, he breathed, the world spinning around him. Tsunade grinned, a bit demonically. Don't faint on me now, yaw wimp. There's more to come. Naruto blanched. You're fucking with me. You're totally fucking with me. Watch your mouth, Tsunade growled, a vein throbbing in her forehead. She instantly calmed down, and her smile returned. Anyway, when Minato and Kushina passed away, they gave control of their assets to Jiraiya, eventually to be passed on to you when the time was right. I believe that time is now. From the safe, this time, she removed a small chest, turquoise with amethyst edges and lock. At the same time, she grasped a tiny, silver key. Go ahead, she said, holding out to Naruto. It's all yours. Naruto's hands were so unstable he couldn't grasp the key properly, the sweat covering his palms. Suddenly, Hinata's hands wrapped around his own. The warmth of her hands seemed to flood him, calming him as he looked to his left, matching her pleasant gaze. Go, she said softly, as Tsunade-sama said, it's all yours. He respired slowly as Hinata guided his hands to the key, nudging his fingers to wrap around its silver handle. Then, slowly, she urged him to push the metal into the lock and twist. The lid flapped open, revealing a series of documents, which Naruto noticed as bank statements. Steeling his resolve, he read them and, as he figured with his father's position as Hokage, Naruto learned that his parents' sum was over twice that of Jiraiya's. He froze, unable to process any emotion or thought. Naruto, said Sasuke, you okay? A minute passed until Naruto said, completely rejuvenated, okay? Are you kidding me? I'm better than okay. I'm about as rich as you. Yeah, but the difference is that I won't waste it all on ramen. Sasuke returned with a cocky grin. Shut up, Naruto said indignantly, but couldn't remain frustrated as his best friend with this news. It doesn't matter, anyway. He turned to Hinata. What's important is that I can finally make everything good in our lives. I can finally set things right. She beamed at him, then leaned in closely and whispered into his ear, if I'm with you, as far as I'm concerned, things have already been set right. He beamed right back at her and then turned to the rest of the room. Sorry to take my leave so suddenly, but Hinata and I have gotta go. Before you leave, Tsunade said with a caring grin, don't spend it all in one place. Congratulations, Naruto. Sakura called as Hinata and Naruto hopped away. Naruto, excited as he was, did not reply to either of the women. Instead, they ran through the halls, and as they entered into the fresh air, Kakashi materialized in front of them. Yo, he said with a slight wave. Just wanted to give my congratulations. It's really great. Thanks, sensei, Naruto said graciously. You know, Kakashi muttered as he leafed through the tale of the gallant Naruto. Jiraiya-sama was extremely proud of you, Naruto. Yeah, I know. And like I said you would, you've already surpassed my sensei. Naruto could only grin with a slight uncharacteristic blush. With what Naruto uncertainly presumed was a wink, Kakashi added, now, since you've cleaned up your shinobi life, go get your personal life in shape, okay? Naruto's teeth shined at Kakashi as he brilliantly replied, yes, sir. With that, he swooped his hand under Hinata, scooping her into his arms as she squealed with delight. See you later, sensei. Naruto exclaimed. Have a good day, Kakashi-sensei. Hinata called as Naruto leapt away with her across the rooftop, while Kakashi waved back and resumed flipping through his book. They reached the apartment, hurrying to the bedroom where the cage-bun Shin had already set up their new bed. Dispersing them, Naruto clambered onto it, Hinata sitting lightly on the edge. So, today was a good day, he asked hopefully. She remained silent for a moment, apparently deliberating Naruto's question. Soon, however, she donned a tremendous smile and said, yes, it was. Naruto's heart swelled. Not only was it incredible that she showed another sign of recovery, but Naruto absolutely loved her smile. As he'd said to her last night, she was so pure, so innocent, a symbol, to him, of everything good and worth living for in his life. When she was happy, it seemed the whole world couldn't resist following along, and Naruto loved her even more for that. Seeing her yawn, another adorable sight, he said, you're pretty tired, huh? She replied, hand on her mouth. Well, you can rest on this nice, cushy bed while I go out and do something, he said, pressing down on the mattress. Wow, this thing really is cushy, he added with a surprised stare. Okay, she said sleepily, laying her head upon the pillow. Naruto took the blanket and tucked her in, pausing for a moment to run his hand through her silken locks and pass a finger over her soft cheek. "I love you," he whispered as her lids slowly fell. "I love you too," she muttered as her breathing steadied to the light sound of sleep. Silently creating a few bunchen to watch over her, Naruto, with one last fond look at his lover, opened his window and leapt out. "I wish I could rest with you, Hinata," he thought, "but this is something I've got to do." Hyuga Hiyashi sat alone in his quarters at the Hyuga estate, sipping sake at a rather frequent rate, his heart muddled with trifle. He knew that over the last few months, the word had spread that he had disowned his wonderful daughter. He was a new monster in the village. Every person to whom he talked spoke with a terrible tone, and even some of his subordinates within the clan acted the same way. He had begun to rethink his actions, something he'd rarely done over the years. And so, he contemplated his future with alcohol, hoping that its intoxicating effect would relieve some of his stress. Suddenly, footsteps reached his ear and behind him a voice said, "Knock knock, asshole." Slowly, he turned around, placing the sake gently on the floor and replied, "How did you get in here, Kyuubi brat?" Naruto, face in a scowl, said, "Let's just say your guards are sleeping." "Intriguing," Hiyashi said, activating his Byakugan and pacing around Naruto. "So you've managed to surpass even our elite clan members, or at least, the weaker ones. I assume you're here for her?" Naruto's scowl deepened, his teeth clenched in rage. "She has a name, you know. It's Hyuga Hinata. She's your daughter." Hiyashi did not respond for a moment, pausing his pacing. Afterwards, however, he responded as he continued his circling, "I can tell by your heart rate and bodily functions that you are not nervous or frightened by my presence, and that you are resolute in coming here. Impressive. I'm not afraid of you," Naruto growled, "I'm certain I can kick your ass to hell." Hiyashi smirked, once again stopping, this time facing Naruto. "Is that so? Let's see you try, shall we?" With that, he lunged at Naruto, palm open and planted it against his chest. Naruto, much to Hiyashi's surprise, disappeared in a puff of smoke. "I can cast Kage Bunshin no Jutsu without seals or announcement, faster than your stupid eyes can see," Naruto told Hiyashi coldly. "Impossible. You merely got lucky. But luck runs out, brat," he said, lunging at Naruto again, hitting another fake. "You call me Kyuubi brat, because I have the demon fox sealed within me," Naruto said as he continued to dodge Hiyashi's strikes. "I was strong enough to fight on par with the heirs to the Uchiha clan. But I was not strong enough to face my fate, to fight the evils that would chase after me solely for what I am. I always denied the demon fox, keeping it in its cage until I needed just some power from it." "Your story lacks interest," Hiyashi said, throwing another feudal fist at Naruto. "I'm getting to the point, hold up," he said, this time catching Hiyashi's wrist and staring him straight in the eyes. "An asshole once told me that my identity crisis was this. Am I Naruto, or am I the fox? In order to face those who hunted me, I decided to defy that. I decided to become both. It's too long to explain now, but I became powerful from it. I gained the power I needed to protect those I care about, those too dear to me to let go. I gained that strength because I love. That's it. You, however," he raged, tightening his grip on Hiyashi's wrist, "you have power, always have. You've got the strength of your bloodline and an entire clan at your disposal. But you use that to push away those who deserve your care, those who had to have it in their time of need. You can't give it to them, to her. That is why you will never be able to beat me, Hiyashi." Hiyashi, listening to Naruto's words, found himself oddly understanding them and slowly, he retracted his fists, deactivating his Byakugan and realizing, at last, exactly what he had done to his first child. "Dear God," he muttered, falling to his knees, what have I? I'm terrible. I really am a monster, I." "Save your pity party," Naruto said harshly, "we're not doing this thing for you. It's for Hinata." "Very well," Hiyashi said as he rose, that is, Hinata, my little girl, my daughter, is once again heiress to this clan. She will be allowed back on the premises." Naruto grinned. "Yeah, that's great and all, but she'll still be staying with me." Hiyashi gaped at first, and then nodded. "Yes, I understand, and I expect you to give her a full apology." "Of course. Now," said Naruto, walking away, "I'm going to go care for your daughter," and exploded in a puff of smoke. "That one was a bunshin too, Hiyashi thought sorrowfully in the darkness of his room. Slowly, he walked to his desk, gathered paper and brush, and began to compose, "To my dear, wonderful child." Meanwhile, learning that Hinata was still napping from the information gained from his bunshin, Naruto decided to enjoy a nice meal with his best friend. As he walked to Ichiraku, suddenly, the immense realization hit him like a sack of bricks. Holy shit, I'm rich, I'm loaded, I can finally pay back Iruka-sensei for ramen. Blissful at the knowledge that Hiyashi was dealt with and his financial problems had dissolved, Naruto landed next to Sasuke at the ramen stand's bench. "Hey," said Sasuke, grinning, "you're late. Picking up some of Kakashi's traits?" "Nah," said Naruto, toothily smiling, "just had to take care of something, a one-time deal." "Well, alright," said Sasuke, separating his chopsticks and digging in, "Itadakimasu." The two ate happily chit-chatting about their lives, and Sasuke asked, "So you and Hinata are a couple, huh?" Naruto chuckled, "So you noticed? Insightful, that Sharingan is." "No, it was just ridiculously obvious." "Is that so?" Naruto said happily into the sky. "So how is it?" Sasuke asked. "What? The relationship?" In a dazed sort of smile, Naruto said, "Perfect." "Really?" "Yeah, she's great, she's beautiful, smart, kind. She has a heart purer than any I've seen." Sasuke smiled, happy for his friend. "That's good, real good. So how about you and Sakura-chan?" "Oh, boy," said Sasuke, "it's a wild ride, I'll tell you that. She's some incredible woman, full of energy like nobody's business." "Excellent," said Naruto. Bursting another bunshin, he said, "Well, I've gotta go." He flipped out some money. "This one's on me." Briefly slapping hands with Sasuke, Naruto returned to his place, where Hinata was just waking up, rubbing the sleep out of her lilac eyes. Rupturing the last of his clones, he placed his arms around her, whispering, "Hey there, sleepyhead." She turned into his embrace, planting a kiss on him. "Hi," she muttered. Naruto kissed back, and soon, she inserted her tongue in his mouth, swishing it around its inside, exciting Naruto heavily. He responded in the same manner, and after some quick sword fighting, he reached his hand to her jacket, hesitating until she gave the signal. Before undoing the signal, however, he parted from her and asked in a hushed tone, "Hinata, how much do you love me?" She seemed a bit surprised at the question, but answered, "I love you more than I love life, more than I thought I could love another. You are my inner, outer existence. You are the sunshine that lightens my day and the moonlight that keeps me while I sleep. I look into your eyes and I see all the glorious things of existence." She pulled him closer. "I love you, Uzumaki Naruto-kun, infinitely, transcending the boundaries of reality." Naruto almost felt himself tearing up. "Okay, that's all I needed, because really, I feel the same. I'm not that good with words, but that's what I can assure you of. I want us to be united forever." Pulling down the zipper in a clean sweep, he added in a whisper, "And I plan to do that right now." He laid her on the bed, sensually undressing her, almost tearing the fishnet shirt off and running his hands over her toned, lean thighs when he removed her pants. He got to her panties and delicately took them from her, excited by her scent. Focused once more, he began his work, remembering another lesson from Jiraiya. Though all gates function as extreme pleasure givers, they also have side effects, Jiraiya said. "Like what?" asked Naruto, barely listening as he practiced. "The first gate reaches into the woman's higher brain functions, allowing her heightened sense when it comes to touch and feeling." Naruto thrust his tongue into Hinata's mouth once more and activated the first gate. She gasped, her nipples becoming erect. He did it again, she thought as her mind went wild. "Wah, Naruto-kun, what are you doing to me?" "I'm giving you a gift," he said softly, "the greatest gift I can." He continued working on her body, pushing the next nodes from her breasts. The second gate rewires the central nervous paths, allowing a certain extent of pain to be converted to pleasure. Testing out this power, he bit lightly into her shoulder, the more primal part of his body wanting to mark her forever as his own, no one else's, as his prey and his mate. She didn't wince in pain, instead, she moaned in pleasure. Satisfied with the second gate's effects, Naruto moved on to the third. If you push the third gate, it activates the pleasure center of the brain more thoroughly, causing several more points on her body to become erogenous zones. Naruto activated it, 8 inches from her solar plexus, and she shrieked a quiet shriek. If you're planning on going past the third gate, that would be the time to start in all your foreplay. Naruto, grinning deviously, ran his hands across her body, across her abdomen, sending waves of pleasure through Hinata. He worked her breasts, so wonderfully soft and perky that despite their immense size, larger than any kunoichi besides Tsunade, she needn't wear a bra. He gripped one as roughly as he could and wrapped his lips, teeth, and tongue around the other's erect nipple. He recalled a comment from her regarding her great body, heard accidentally while she confided Kurenai-sensei. "So you've gone through yet another bra size?" Kurenai asked, impressed. "Yes, they keep growing, and I don't see an end in sight. They're really sensitive, too. I often have to," she cut off, embarrassed, "that is, well," she said, pushing her fingers together, face the color of an immaculate rose. "And you have no stretch marks or blemishes or anything?" Kurenai asked in disbelief. "No, don't worry," Kurenai said, placing a comforting hand on Hinata's shoulder, "it just means you're a very lucky girl." Naruto, agreeing with Kurenai, had thought when he noticed her developing body that it was just wishful thinking, but now he knew that soon enough, she would be in Tsunade's league. Naruto's erection pulsated with this thought as he kneaded her breasts, driving his fingers into them as hard as he could, basking in the ecstasy gained from Hinata's yelps of pleasure. "So soft," he groaned as he worked. Reluctantly, he moved on, running his hands across her body the whole way so that she would feel the third gate's effect. He arrived at the base of her spine, the location of the fourth gate. Should you activate the fourth gate, it releases her body's reaction to strain, allowing her to temporarily move like she wouldn't normally think to. He blasted the chakra into her, and as soon as he did, she flipped onto her stomach, latching her legs completely around him as though she were a contortionist, positioning herself perfectly prepared for him to penetrate. Naruto wanted desperately to move on, to finish the job as soon as possible, so he moved his fingers to her navel, the fifth gate. The fifth gate blasts enough erotic energy through her that her desperation for becomes too much to bear. Hinata, moaning yet again at the gate's activation, reached back towards Naruto, grabbing at his member, and moaning, "Need, so, big, need huge cock to fuck me." Turned on by her removed inhibition, he snatched her wrist and said, "Not yet. Not quite yet." He decided that she wanted this to finish as much as he did, and he proceeded to the sixth gate, positioned as dual points in her inner thighs, barely able to concentrate on the chakra flow. Gate number 6 increases nerve impulse and blood pressure, so that the pleasure reaches more thoroughly, quickly, and completely. Naruto, regretfully unlatching her legs from around him, moved to grope her tremendous breasts yet again, and even before he touched the nipple, its sheer proximity made her cry out in insane euphoria. Finally, he reached the seventh gate, right on her clitoris. The penultimate gate reduces her mind state to a primal, raw level, removing all sapient thought, linguistics, calculations, everything, so that the whole of the pleasure created by the past 6 gates becomes her entire mind's focus. Naruto pushed with as much as he could muster, and Hinata went silent. No longer did she shriek, no longer did she moan. Instead, she merely gasped in a silent scream of elation, her blank pupils dilated to the maximum, her tongue hanging out, lapping excitedly at some invisible, unknown object, and tears of joy trickling down her cheeks. He smiled at this sight, completely prepared to deliver the final strike, but hesitated. "Can I really risk it? Will I chance shattering her mind?" he thought, nervous. But suddenly, he heard Hinata, though her language skills were shot, though her rational mind was sleeping, say, "I love Naruto-kun?" Resolve restored, Naruto thought, "Yes. I will." The final gate, Jiraiya said, excited, "If you ever unlock it, is perfectly placed, I believe, located right in the vagina. You can't use your fingers for it." "Then, what do I do?" asked Naruto. "You use, you know." He made a series of hand gestures. "I'm not following. You're wrong." "Huh. Anyway, I can't tell you what the final gate is like, it's too incredible to be described in words. Good luck with it." Naruto positioned himself at her entrance, casting the protection jutsu as quickly as he could. He took hold of her perfect rear for a few seconds before, with a deep breath, he thrust himself into her, and her shrieks and cries and screams returned with a vengeance. Naruto summoned up all the chakra he could, tapping into the demon fox's reserves, and with one thrust, he began climaxing, and the world disappeared. He was in a white void, completely empty except for his thoughts. The pleasure, the erotic pleasure he felt around him was incredible, unlike anything he'd ever imagined possible. He was disembodied, merely a mass of thought, but the one thing he knew was that she was with him. She was one with him, united in this incredible pleasure, as one entity. It seemed an eternity passed in this void of paradise until finally, the world flashed back into reality. Hinata was already passed out, asleep on her back with Naruto's seed, a great deal from his larger-than-usual member, covering her abdomen, and yet a good amount remained at her entrance. Naruto figured that the only reason he was still awake was due to his inhuman stamina, but the eighth gate. Jiraiya had been completely right, it was indescribable by words, and even he was completely wiped from it. But still, mustering up as much strength as he could to stand, he cleaned himself and her up, then lay down next to her, clutching her body, now marked by him, very tightly. She beamed as she lay there, unconscious, and Naruto too could not suppress a smile. Finally, the exhaustion got to him, and he drifted off. He awoke to the feeling of slender, delicate fingers running through his hair and the scent of flowers in his olfactory senses. Lazily opening his eyes, he found Hinata straddling him, an extremely pleased smile adorning her lips. "Good morning, lover," she whispered, kissing him. Morning, he echoed. "How are you feeling?" She said, stretching, "I feel incredible, Naruto-kun." Naruto's ego did a victory lap until he remembered Jiraiya's warning. "And God help you if you go to the eighth and final point. It will shatter her mind completely, taking away her freedom and making her your slave so that she will live only to pleasure and be pleasured by you. The mind shattering can be overcome. If, before the intercourse, the woman loves the man completely and freely, with all her heart and soul, her mind will override the shattering." "How do I know if it's happened?" Naruto asked. "Simple. She will have no free will of her own whatsoever. Everything will be for you and you alone." Naruto gulped. Hinata, he said nervously, "what do you want to do today?" She laid herself down on his chest, her large breasts mashing up against pectoral muscles. "Oh, I don't know," she said lazily, "what do you want to do?" Breaking into a sweat, he quickly returned, I can't decide. "Just pick something. Anything." Naruto's heart stopped as he waited for her answer. Finally, she said, How about we go get brunch at that new place?" His heartbeat resumed, at double pace as he sighed in relief. That really sounds great," he said. She rolled off of him and then the bed, beaming, and said, "Good, then let's get ready, okay?" A few minutes later, they exited the house and Naruto noticed how much eager she was to go out. Was it seeing her friends not revile her, the incredible, or both, that had loosened her state? Either way, Naruto didn't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, so he merely asked, "So where's this new place you mentioned?" Placing her index fingers parallel in a chakra-gathering seal, she muttered, "Byakugan." Naruto noted this was the first time she'd done so since her rape. "Over there," she said, pointing, and latched onto Naruto very tightly, which he took to mean she still very much needed him as a lifeline. "That's fine," he told himself, "it doesn't need to be all at once, just as long as it's happening." "Then let's go," he said, pulling her with him, and soon, they arrived at the small restaurant. "Welcome," said the maitre d', seating for two, sir? "Yeah," replied Naruto, allowing the man to escort them to their table. "Hello," said bubbly young waitress soon after they'd sat down, "are you two on a date?" "Ah, yeah," said Naruto, a bit puzzled by his own answer. "And what an attractive couple you make, if I may say so," she exclaimed, whipping out her order pad. "Are you ready to order?" "Thank you, and I'll have the fruit salad, please," Hinata said, eyeing the menu. "Of course, madam. And for you, sir?" She turned to Naruto. "Do you have ramen?" he asked. The waitress gained a confused expression and swiveled her head around, perhaps to see if she were being pranked. Quickly, she resumed her prior demeanor and replied, No, sir, we do not." "Oh," said Naruto, disappointed, and quickly scanned the menu. "Then I guess I'll have the fried eggs." "Very good, sir," she said, and hurried up to input their order. When she'd left earshot, Naruto said, "You know, Hinata, this is technically our first date." She smiled. "Yes, it is, but it doesn't feel like it, does it?" "I know what you mean," he said, leaning back. "I mean, even though we've only been together for 2 days, it feels like we've lasted a good long time." It's because we're perfect for each other, she reassured him, squeezing his hand. He grinned. Yeah, you're right. A few seconds later, she said with a blush, Naruto-kun, last night, her voice became very hushed. What did you do to me, exactly? Oh, that? He said, nervously scratching the side of his head, it's just something? You picked up, right, she finished, but you were so good, I couldn't help but wonder, how many times have you done that? Naruto goggled at her. What? No, he said, hands risen in defense. Our first time was my first time, Hinata, but if you want to know about those things I did. Well, it all started one night when Eros Sennin was smashed off his ass, and he decided to make me his protege not just in ninjutsu, but as a world-class pervert. And so he told her, sparing her the specific details, of the 8 UAL gates and their powers. Once he'd finished, Hinata, red-faced as she'd heard the tale, replied, Wow, so Jiraiya-sama taught you to do those things? Yeah, I thought they were useless at the time, but clearly, I learned better. Indeed, she muttered. Oh wow, she tilted her head in fond remembrance. The ending, it was amazing, Naruto-kun. And you know what the best part is? He said coolly, he told me that the effect gets better every time. Hinata blushed even more, so much that Naruto feared blood would come gushing from her ears. Her blush receded with the realization. But, I'm not a mindless slave, so that means. Yeah, said Naruto, glad she'd come to the conclusion he'd reached earlier. I really love you more than I can describe, she said quietly. I know, he replied, and leaned in, giving her a small kiss, and I love you just as much. Their food arrived and they ate happily, with Naruto giving a toast to Jiraiya, for his gifts of knowledge and wealth, and to themselves, for the life that would surely follow. Then, as they left, Naruto paid a healthy tip to their waitress, who looked utterly shocked from its sum. As they exited the building, suddenly, an Anbu unit member landed in front of them, kneeling. Uzumaki Naruto-san, Hyuga Hinata-san, he said rapidly, urgent message from the 5th Hokage-sama. Yeah, spill it out already, Naruto urged. Very well. He stood and cleared his throat. The message reads as follows, We've caught him. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt Hinata's palm grow sweaty around his own. Exciting ending, no? Naruto blinked a few times as the sentence ran its way through his mind. He'd been caught? The rapist had been caught? The man who'd single-handedly caused Hinata the greatest pain she'd ever suffered had been caught. The thought of apprehending him had left Naruto's mind long ago, but faced with this news, what was flooding his senses? Anger? Relief? He wasn't sure. Realizing he was still staring at the Anbu, Naruto gulped, trying to regain his composure. Okay, thanks for the message, you can leave. The Anbu nodded and leapt away. Naruto turned to Hinata and saw her completely hunched over, a posture he'd not seen since she'd first come from the hospital, and to top it all off, she was sweating profusely, her hand clamped around Naruto's. Hinata, he said gently, clutching her shoulders and forcing her to look him in the eye, if you want, you don't need to go. She shook her head rapidly. I'm not scared, she answered, though her quaking hands betrayed her mind. I can't be SS. She took a deep, calming breath, scared. Let's go. Giving her hand one last squeeze, he led her down the street. They arrived at the military police force a few minutes later where another Anbu soldier greeted them. Hello, Naruto-san, Hinata-san. Please, if you come this way, I'll show you the culprit. We haven't interrogated him yet, as we thought you may want to see him first. Why did it take so long to capture him? Naruto asked as they walked down the hall. Well, as you heard, Kakashi-senpai's ninkin were sent to find this man, but there was a bit of trouble. What do you mean? They recognized the scent, however, they couldn't comprehend it. They discovered that the scent was actually a mixture of 2 scents, scents Kakashi-senpai knew from times long past. 2 scents? Naruto asked, confused, what does that mean? Well, the Anbu said with a sigh as they reached the door, their destination. Perhaps you'll understand better if I just show you. As they entered, a slow, eerily familiar voice hissed, It's been a while. Naruto-kun. Naruto stopped, eyes wide, in pure shock. Sitting, tied to the chair, sat a mutant. The only fitting way to describe this being, divided directly down the middle into 2 entities. One side had medium length, wavy grayish hair, peach skin, and black eyes. The other sported long, straight black hair, ghostly pale skin, and unsettlingly yellow eyes with slits for the pupils. What are you? Naruto asked, barely at a whisper. Are you Kabuto, or Orochimaru? The hybrid smiled crazily and answered, a fair question. My mind, I suppose, is that you know as Kabuto, but my body, my strength, it contains the incredible strength of Orochimaru-sama in his prime. Though truthfully, it's much more. Okay, said Naruto calmly, taking a breath. As a vein throbbed in his forehead, he shouted, what the fuck is wrong with you? Nothing, Kabuto answered pleasantly, I'm perfectly fine. You fucking son of a bitch. Naruto roared. Why would you do that to Hinata of all people? What could you possibly gain from that? Sasuke had entered the room at this point. Naruto, I heard they caught the guy, and, oh my god, he said, stunned at the appearance of a foe long thought dead. Ah, Sasuke-kun, good of you to join us. Kabuto squeaked with a joyful twist of his head. Well then, allow me to answer Naruto-kun's question. Why did I hurt that woman over there? 2 reasons. First, I wanted to further test my growing power. Sasuke's Sharingan activated without his will. You son of a… Naruto was unsurprised. He remembered that was essentially the same reason Itachi had given for slaughtering the Uchiha clan. And the second reason, Kabuto continued, was pure and simple. I wanted to hurt you, Naruto-kun. I wanted to destroy the most precious thing to you, that girl, to make you feel what it's like to lose your most important thing. Let me get this straight, Naruto growled, fists rumbling, you raped. He didn't say the word so much as vomited it, Hinata? Just to hurt me? Yes, replied Kabuto, grinning sadistically. And I dare say it worked. Naruto turned to Sasuke and said, I think he's told us everything. His life is worthless now. Agreed, said Sasuke, unsheathing his chokoto. Kabuto began to laugh. You honestly think I didn't mean to be captured? I have greater power than Orochimaru-sama ever had. The feeble soldiers of this pathetic village could never take me, and you two are no different. With one swift move, he burst from his ropes and plowed through the nearby wall, calling, I'll be waiting for you, Sasuke-kun, Naruto-kun, and escaped. Naruto began to give chase, but felt a hand on his jacket. He turned to find Hinata, paler than usual, hands writhing uncontrollably, sweating bullets. PP please, she said, DD don't go. Hinata? Naruto uttered. I can't let him hurt you, she murmured and then burst into a flood of tears. I can't stand losing you. If you die, my soul will go with you, Naruto-kun. Naruto embraced her tightly, stroking her back gently as she sobbed. There's something I haven't told you, do you remember when I'd be exhausted every so often at home? Why yes, she choked out. I thought you were just tired from taking care of me. Not at all, he said, ever since you were hurt by that monster, I've been in training. I'd send tens of thousands of Kage Bunshin all over the town, to the library, to the dojo, to the various training grounds, and to friends' places. They'd practice, over and over, learning all sorts of things from textbooks and our comrades. I played shogi and learned strategy from Shikamaru. I learned mental focus from Ino. I practiced taijutsu with fuzzy eyebrows. I learned weapon mastery from Tenten. I learned to use chakra to enhance my senses from Kiba. I learned an incredible amount of jutsu from Kakashi sensei. I learned all about the ins and outs of being a ninja from the texts. I even learned something special about my father's combat. Hinata sniffled. Naruto-kun, the mental strain would exhaust me, but I'd push forward because I needed to become stronger. I needed to be able to protect you, my friends, and my village. He stared directly into her puffy eyes and told her with his deep, manly voice, his prepubescent voice discarded long ago, I'm not a child anymore, Hinata. I've grown up. I've become a man capable of defending what's important to me. And even without all that training, I have an unbeatable ace in the hole. Have faith in me. Hinata was overcome with an odd but wonderful sensation. Everything about Naruto was telling her to believe in him. Okay. Why you'd better be back soon, or else, she said, wiping her eyes thoroughly. I'll be home before dinner, he assured her and turned to his best friend. Sasuke. Let's get going. Sasuke nodded and they hurried through the hole in the wall towards Kabuto's trail. Silently, they followed the path through the forest, through trees and over boulders until finally, they reached a clearing where Kabuto, surrounded a multitude of other ninja with large purple ropes wrapped around them, the same twisted smile adorning his mouth. "Welcome, you two. I'm glad you could make it. But my time with you is not quite yet. Bastard," Naruto yelled, charging, "you're going to pay for what you've done." Kabuto, however, jumped out of the way, slithering like a snake. "Sorry to disappoint, but you and I have yet to dance." "Boys," he said, directing the other ninja, "go ahead and play with these gentlemen." With that, Kabuto leapt away. With a sick grin, Kabuto's subordinates began morphing, changing into the easily recognizable Curse Seal Level 2, leaving an army of mutants. "Shit," Naruto muttered, "really don't want to deal with this." Sasuke drew his sword. "I'll take care of the small fries. You go after him." Naruto nodded. "Thanks, Sasuke," he said, and rushed off after Kabuto. "Small fries?" asked one of the sound ninja. "You're arrogant, boy." Activating his Sharingan once more, Sasuke scowled. "Don't you know who I am? I guess it's been a while," he said, and leapt at the monstrosities. At last, Naruto caught up to Kabuto, alone this time in another clearing. "Hello, Naruto-kun," he said. "It's a shame, really. You're making me kill you all out of order. You say you're gonna kill me?" Naruto uttered angrily. "Don't worry. I'll kill your little girlfriend too, so you'll be united soon enough." Naruto could no longer take it and dove at Kabuto, fist raised. Kabuto blocked and delivered a kick to Naruto's chest. "You see? I've gained incredible power. I far outclass you." Naruto stood, brushing himself off. "Okay," he said quietly, "now I know what I need to do to kick your ass." Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Several Naruto replicas appeared out of thin air, lunging at Kabuto. Kabuto managed to ward off this attack, but was unprepared when he heard Naruto cry, "Hiraishin no Jutsu," Flying Thunder God technique, and teleport next to Kabuto with a knockdown punch. Kabuto lifted himself from the ground slowly, still smiling crazily. "I didn't know you had learned the fourth Hokage's other signature jutsu, Naruto-kun," he said, "but don't expect it to work more than once. There are a lot of things you don't know about me." Naruto returned and rushed once more at Kabuto. The battle raged on, Kabuto quickly ridding himself of the various clone assaults. They appeared even matched. "You'll never win, Naruto-kun," said Kabuto, "I still have powers yet." Naruto, after a pause, said, "You told me once about your identity crisis, equating it with my own. Am I Naruto, or am I the Kyuubi? You told me. There is no crisis anymore." "What do you mean?" asked Kabuto, puzzled. "It doesn't matter," he said. He didn't care about this enemy enough to explain about the Toadki Jiraiya had given him long ago, and how Naruto had broken his father's seal and fused with the Kyuubi's chakra. Instead, Naruto closed his eyes and focused. When he opened them, his whisker marks were still thin, his teeth still human, and his nails merely that. His eyes, though not red, had become foxy slits. The most significant change was the white light surrounding him. He no longer used the power of the individual tails, fueled by his hatred. Since combining fully with the fox's power, he had achieved a special state. It was an odd feeling, considering he'd not used this form in a long time. The chakra was completely inside him, non-damaging, and gave him unbelievable power. His might was enhanced to the point that he could not feel the weight of his own body, and he could lift several times his normal strength, surpassing that of Tsunade. His speed, as a result, was multiplied many times as well. Lastly, his body supplied, as the fox had boasted, an infinite amount of easily controlled chakra. "What is this?" Kabuto asked, stunned by the sight. "Your end," Naruto snarled and leapt at Kabuto once more, punching him into the dirt. Naruto didn't give him time to rise and pummeled him as he lay, then lifted him up, swung him around, and smashed him into a large boulder. Then, as Kabuto leaned shocked against the boulder, Naruto produced 3 Kage Bunshin. Together, they laid into him, a fluid, cohesive volley of blows bruising Kabuto's face as his skull smashed against the rock over and over. Naruto released all the rage and frustration he'd built up over the months with this flurry of punches. "Goo," said the barely conscious Kabuto. "Tell me," said Naruto, taking Kabuto's arm, "how does it feel to be this frightened?" He snapped the arm at the elbow, causing Kabuto to scream out in pain. "How does it feel?" He picked up his other arm, to be this hopeless. With another crunch, this arm was broken too, and Kabuto shrieked again. How does it feel to know that I won't stop hurting you no matter what? He asked, kicking Kabuto's kneecap so hard that it shattered. And how does it feel to know that death is only a few moments away? He roared, crushing the other kneecap, sending Kabuto to the floor. Well, Naruto said, kicking Kabuto in the ribs, answer me. Mercy, Kabuto moaned. Mercy? Naruto laughed a bitter laugh. Do you know what you've done? You could have attacked me, tried to rip me in two, torture me, whatever. That would have been fine. I could have easily dealt with that. But you had to defile a woman so pure she wouldn't want to harm a soul in this world. You are the single worst scum on the face of the earth, and you deserve to die. You want mercy? As far as I'm concerned, you're not a person. You're a snake, just a small, slimy snake who thinks he's bigger than the world. And foxes happen to eat snakes. But I won't kill you, he said, stepping away from Kabuto's limp body. That would be far too kind. No, your punishment will be infinitely worse. Naruto produced another clone that approached Kabuto, spinning chakra in his hand. The Rasen Shuriken appeared in his palm, but smaller than the one Naruto had unleashed upon Kakuzu that time long ago, as insurance that Kabuto would not die. Any last words? The Bunshin asked. Kabuto could only look stunned at the swirling ball of pain in the duplicate's hand. No? All right. Prepare yourself. He raised the jutsu high in the air. Rasen Shuriken. He roared, slamming down his hand and creating a tremendous dome of spiraling death. The original Naruto watched, hearing Kabuto's screams. At first loud, then slowly faded. When it subsided, he jumped towards the bloody body of Kabuto, feeling his neck. Discovering a pulse, he raised himself and said, "How does it feel to know that you are trapped forever in the most painful prison imaginable?" He paused, and then smiled cruelly. "Oh, that's right. My jutsu severed your nerve channels. You can't talk. You can't move. You can't speak. You can't do anything. Not a damn thing. Get used to it. That's your life from now on. Not so good to live forever, is it, Snake Boy?" His fox form faded, reverting his eyes. Instantly, he felt the fatigue. While it didn't inflict permanent damage, his fox form did strain his body completely, and using a jutsu so complex as the Rasen Shuriken with one hand wasn't exactly simple. The control was even more difficult to make it smaller, as he couldn't just unleash his chakra fully. Naruto reached into his tool pouch and pulled out an exploding tag and kunai. Wrapping the former around the latter, he threw the combination into the air, allowing it to violently explode. There, he thought woozily, someone'll see that, probably. He plopped himself down at the boulder where he'd pummeled Kabuto, just left of the large amount of bloodstains. He sat for hours as his strength faded and as dizziness arrived. Briefly, he wondered if Sasuke would be okay against those curse seal monsters, but assured himself that Sasuke was way too strong to be taken by these guys. The world began to go dark as he heard the voice of his beloved calling, "There he is. Over here," and he drifted off. He awoke a short while later, Sasuke, somewhat cut up, next to him. Where am I?" he asked. "You're in the Konoha Military Police Infirmary," Sasuke informed him. "Kabuto is in our hands, and Hinata's about to see him." "I should go too," Naruto said, getting up, a little unsteadily. "You sure you can do this?" Sasuke asked. Yeah, I'm fine," Naruto answered and made his way out the door and back to the interrogation chamber. The Anbu outside told him, "Though we know there's no information we can get from him, we figured we'd let Hinata-san get a little closure before we throw him off to prison, and let Naruto inside." Hinata stood, staring at the inert Kabuto, who was tied to a wall. This was the man who'd caused everything, and now he lay here, helpless. She knew Naruto had entered, but did not turn to face him. She came near to her rapist, slowly, as his eyes, the only outer thing functional on his body, widened, and raised a fist. Slowly, however, she put it down, and turned away to look at a surprised Naruto. I'm ready, I think, she said. Then, however, she let out a scream of rage and cried, "Hake Rokujuyan Sho." 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Whipping around and blasting Kabuto with the full force of her strikes. When she'd finished, she swiveled back to Naruto and said, "Okay. Now I'm ready." He smiled. "Good, let's go," he said, and, placing his arm around her shoulder, left the precinct. They stopped by Tsunade's office to inform her of the emergency mission's success. I think, that's quite the fitting punishment, Tsunade said. He has inherited Orochimaru's crimes, so we have him on murder of the third Hokage, murder of the fourth Cage, conspiracy, fraud, attempt to destroy the village, kidnapping, mutilation via illegal experimentation, using forbidden jutsu, and last, but certainly not least, rape. He and Orochimaru tried to live a life without consequence. Orochimaru had no qualms, for he thought he'd be immortal, and death was no boundary for him. And now, Kabuto will spend the remainder of his days in agonizing pain. His arms and legs will not mend, as there will be no electrical signals to indicate their damage. He will likely be driven insane from the isolation of being unable to act, essentially in a waking coma, and the constant, never-yielding pain. Well done, Naruto. It was nothing, he replied, shrugging. Just something I needed to do, he added with a glance at Hinata. Tsunade smiled. Nothing, Well, keep it up. You're going to lead the village, after all. Naruto blushed despite himself. Thanks. I'm sorry we couldn't find out if there was anything more to Kabuto. He had some sound ninja with him. It's alright, said Tsunade. Whatever comes ahead, we'll deal with it. What's important is that you two are okay. Thanks, Ba-chan, he said, smiling. Don't mention it, she said, and made a shooing motion with her hands. Now get on out of here. It's a brand new day. Enjoy it. Not needing another word, Naruto and Hinata raced out of the Hokage building towards the apartment, basking in the warmth of the bright sun. When they arrived in the bedroom, Naruto found a silver envelope wedged between the window and the pane. What's this? He muttered, inspecting it. Immediately, the words, to Hyuga Hinata, caught his eye. I think it's for you, he said, handing the letter to her. As she took the letter, she let out a gasp. This is one of my family's stylized envelopes. She cried, tearing it open immediately. Hands shaking, she read aloud. To my dear, wonderful child, Hinata. To say I have been unfair would be akin to labeling the ocean as moist. Accurate but meaningless. What I have done to you is beyond that, it is inhumane, and for that, I am truly, utterly sorry. There is no amount of apology that can make up for what I have done, and as such, I do not expect you to forgive me. I merely wish you understand. When you were hurt, when you were maimed physically and emotionally, I saw your pain and I, though I did not fathom it at the time, saw my own failure. Your boyfriend helped me to realize that. I failed, as a father, to protect you, as I have all my life. This, however, was a failure like no other. Hinata began sobbing gently at this point. Why you are precious to me. More than you CCC and I am Majin. And when I saw what had been done to you, I lashed out, doing anything to escape my guilt, and ended up hurting you, when you needed most to be helped. For that, once more, I am SSS. ISS sorry beyond measure. Hinata had begun tearing too heavily to continue, so Naruto gently took the letter and finished. I want you to know that you are to be let into this home whenever you please. I want you to know that all my powers will be transferred to you when you are ready. I want you to know that you are to have everything I have when it is time. I want you to know these things as a member of this family, as the heiress to this clan, but most importantly, as my beloved, incredible daughter. Love, for all eternity, your father, Hyuga Hiyashi. He dropped the paper and immediately embraced Hinata as she wrapped her arms around his midsection, crying forcefully into his chest. It's okay, he whispered, patting her gently, get it all out. After a few more minutes of her weeping, it lessened. She no longer groaned, though the tears remained raining down her cheeks. He loved me, she whimpered, astonished, looking into Naruto's adoring gaze. He loves me. He does, Naruto agreed, smiling sweetly, and why shouldn't he? You're wonderful. Everyone should love you. I certainly do. I love you too, Naruto-kun, she sighed. He said you helped him realize, what did you do? I went down and talked to him, said Naruto. It wasn't a lie, just a mere admittance of the fact that he'd been forced to show Hiyashi that his Juken couldn't match Naruto's cage Bunshin. Made sure you got a fair chance. She squeezed him even tighter. Oh, Naruto-kun, she moaned. You don't realize what you've done for me, have you? What's that? He asked. Just as you said, you've given me a fair chance, but not just with my father. You helped me when I was in trouble, when everything I had in the world was gone. You helped me settle things within myself today, with that monster. You've given me a new chance at life, Naruto-kun. As Tsunade-sama said, it's a brand new day. He kissed the top of her head. I helped you, not merely because I care about you tremendously, but because you were the one who helped me when I needed it. You stuck by me while others deserted, and for that, I could do nothing other than care for you in your time of need. Naruto-kun, she murmured, wiping the tears from her eyes. Slowly, she raised herself and, with a hand on his chest, pushed Naruto onto the bed and placed herself over him, a leg on each side. Hinata? He asked, wide-eyed. I'm going to thank you, she said, undressing him, the best way I can. She reached the first Hokage's necklace and grasped it gently. You told me, Tsunade-sama gave this to you because of a bet, and that the second part of her ante was, she would have to acknowledge that you could be Hokage. Naruto-kun, if it's the last thing I do, I will make everyone in this village acknowledge that fact. Hinata, he said again, taking off the necklace and carefully laying it on the table next to the bed. Then, he cupped his rough, calloused hands around her cheeks, indulging in soft muliebrity of her texture and kissing her as tenderly yet passionately as possible. One quick thing to take care of, he said as they kicked off their shoes and sent a horde of cage buns shin out the window to leap across the rooftops. There, now we can go on. As they became fully undressed, they picked up the heat, cavorting with each other's tongues. Naruto initiated the first arrow jutsu gate, the now familiar heat radiating off of her body. He reached down her breasts to press the next 2 points, but found her hands blocking him. Hinata, what? He asked, confused. Naruto-kun, I told you, I'm thanking you, she said. You've done all these great things in my life, but you've also done things to me that make me feel. She looked up in nostalgia. Well, they make feel things I never thought I could feel before. But it's all been you doing it to me. I know I get the brunt of the pleasure. It's not like it's been exactly agonizing for me, you know, he inserted. Please, I want to do this for you, she said, rubbing his hands on his chest and heading south. Hinata, you really don't. Suddenly, her hand enveloped his manhood tightly. I really want to, she said, staring straight into his shocked face, please. Well, I guess if you really want to, it would be terrible of me to deny you that, and, he regained himself and said, let's get on with it, then. She released his member and moved herself back up to him, kissing from his collarbone down, rubbing her hands all over his chest. Naruto decided he wasn't going to just lie there and be worked upon and grabbed her breasts with just the right amount of force to make her cry out in pleasure. Naruto-kun, I have an idea, he said, playing with her nipples while she moaned in ecstasy. Let's do this, together. Together? She asked, one eye closed from the delight. Together, he reassured her. She nodded and the two proceeded, coming to know their love's entire bodies, inch by inch. Finally, they came to the close, the climax before their climax, the thrusting. Naruto once again cast the protection jutsu, this time remembering Jiraiya's lecture on it. Naruto, this is probably the most important jutsu I will ever teach you. Hell, it will probably the most important one you'll ever learn. Whoa, said Naruto, excited, what is it? Tell me, come on. It is the protection jutsu, a technique of ultimate safety. Wow, Naruto muttered. What does it do? Like, create a wall of chakra or something? No, said Jiraiya. Then what? Naruto asked impatiently. It protects against all illnesses that occur in UAL intercourse. Naruto's mouth fell open. Quote ellipsis. That's it? Well, no. It also prevents the lady you're with from getting pregnant. Naruto blinked. How, exactly, is this the most important jutsu ever? Are you telling me you want a lot of little dumb as rocks hyperactive blonde brats running around yelling, "Datbeo," every few seconds? Naruto stood silent at Jiraiya's flurry of insults for but a moment. You know, I'm eventually going to kill you for that, he said plainly. Oh, you're just a kid now, but you'll understand why it's so necessary someday. And it's 100% guaranteed success unless you're a complete and utter moron. Of course, that means you'll be screwed. Yeah, definitely going to kill you, Naruto grumbled. I'm just messing with you. Come, I'll show you how it's done. Another life lesson from Jiraiya. He hadn't merely taught ninjutsu, Naruto realized, but he'd also taught Naruto to be a man. Silently, he thanked him for it and focused on the purpose of learning said jutsu. He thrust at Hinata, ramming her with all he could until the two of them orgasmed in unison. Hinata certainly hadn't failed in delivering. She lay on top of him, panting for a few seconds until she said, "Again?" Naruto, first surprised, said, "Hell yeah," and began again. Over and over the two repeated the cycle of build-up, climax, and afterglow, never hesitating to repeat. At one point as she rested next to him during the final stage, Naruto asked, breathing heavily, "Hey, Hinata, when did we start doing this?" About 3 page M, she said, respiring just as greatly. She become drenched in sweat and her hair was completely unkempt. "And, what time is it now?" She glanced at the clock. "5 a.m. "Woo," he said with a laugh, "we're really good at this." "Yeah," with a deep breath, he asked, "You ready to quit?" "No, I could go for one more time." "Me too. Let's go," he said, and thrust his tongue in her mouth. In the end, it turned out that they did it 3 times more, with Naruto finally falling asleep before she. Wow, she thought, gazing lovingly at Naruto. What an incredible day this was. I needed this a lot. And what stamina he has. I don't know if I'll be able to walk correctly for a while, but I didn't know I had it in me, either. In fact, I'm relatively certain I didn't have it in me until now. It must have had something to do with those gate techniques of his. Well, I'm glad Jiraiya-sama taught him those. Naruto-kun, he's such an incredible human being. With that thought, she too let herself be taken in by sleep's gentle embrace. A knocking awoke Hinata hours later like a sledgehammer to the brain. "MZMPHX, she babbled into her pillow. Wearily, she turned to look at Naruto, still out cold, and then stepped off the bed, doing her best to tell the visitor that she would be right there. However, all that she ended up saying was, "MMMKMNG." She hoped that by the time she made it to the door, she would regain the use of vowels. Luckily, or unluckily, depending on the perspective, before she reached the door, she realized she was still very much naked. Though she enjoyed this freedom in the company of just Naruto, she did feel extremely uncomfortable undressed with others. And so, slowly working the gears in her brain, she put on her pants and a t-shirt of Naruto's, obviously large on her. But she didn't care. Instead she enjoyed the feeling of being in his scent. Finally, she stumbled her way to the door while ignoring the discomfort between her legs, opened it, and muttered, "Hello." One vowel. Good start. Sakura stood in the doorway, brow raised at Hinata's disheveled appearance. "Hello, Hinata, am I interrupting anything?" Hinata did not so much shake her head as she did swing it around limply on her neck. Though not convinced much, she said, "Ah. Good. Well, I'm sorry to wake you, but I wanted to let you that a few of us kunoichi are going to get together later, you know, for a little girl time. Would you like to come?" Briefly, Hinata's brain clicked into full gear as she contemplated this question. Her heart raced with the decision, but finally, she reached it. Her brain slowed back down and she gave a weak thumbs up and a smile. Sakura thought, amused, that she must have gained this habit from being in Naruto's presence so often. "Good. So, I'll see you at, say, 6ish, my place?" Hinata nodded. "Okay, see you then," Sakura said and skipped happily away. Hinata slammed the door shut and trudged back to the bed, undressing once more. She took a glance at the clock. 10 a.m. When did 10 a.m. become so early? She wondered before returning to a near comatose state. Meanwhile, Naruto found himself dreaming, walking about in a house that certainly wasn't his. It was much larger than his apartment and with much more furniture. "Where the hell?" he muttered. "Hello, Naruto," said a voice behind him, causing Naruto to jump. "Who?" he began, but instantly stopped, stunned. There, right in front of him, was a man Naruto only knew in pictures. A large cloak adorned his shoulders while a forehead protector displayed the leaf symbol atop his large, spiky yellow hair. He was tall, about as tall as Naruto, with deep blue eyes and his arm around a beautiful, alabaster-skinned woman with flowing red hair. Both smiled widely at Naruto. "Dad, Mom," he uttered, barely able to speak. "It's good to see you," said Kushina, "it has been a long time." Naruto could feel himself tearing up. Oh God, I have so many things I need to." "I know," said Minato, his voice reassuring, and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "But first, I want to say, I'm sorry, Naruto." Naruto tilted his head to the side. What do you mean? I did all this to you," he said with a sad smile. I placed this tremendous burden on you. You shouldn't be sorry, Naruto quickly returned. Well, I suppose I wouldn't be, if you were satisfied with your life, Minato answered with a squeeze. Tell me, my son, are you satisfied with your life? Naruto looked back on his life and realized something incredible. His life was not a list of failures, something Jiraiya once thought about his own life. He'd saved Neji, avenging Hinata, Sakura, from Gaara, Tsunade, from her greed and depression, Gaara, from Akatsuki, with the help of Chiyo, Ino, Choji, and Kakashi, from Kakuzu, helping to avenge Asuma, and finally, Sasuke, from himself. But in addition to those, he'd saved his own life from suffering, from pain. And now, recently, he'd saved Hinata's life, even if he couldn't protect her from Kabuto's twisted design. She was alive and well, thanks to him. He looked back on the life he'd carved out for himself, eyes closed, and smiled. Yeah, he said softly, smiling, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really like my life. Minato smiled, a smile that Naruto had seen reflected in his mirror countless times. Then good, said Minato. In that case, I imagine I would do it over. You've been a good son, said Kushina. And you've been a good human being, a good man, especially to dear Hinata-chan. Agreed, said Minato. I'm glad you got over Sakura-san. With all due respect to her, Hinata-san is infinitely better than she for you. You two will be happy forever, Kushina assured him, so don't worry so much. And you know, Minato said, leaning in to whisper to Naruto, you're not the only Jiraiya-sensei taught those techniques to, if you know what I mean. Naruto burst out laughing, yep, that sounds like Ero Sennin to me. Kushina, suddenly crying, reached over and gave Naruto a tremendous hug, which was soon joined by Minato. It's almost time for us to go. I love you so much, Naruto. Me too, my son, said Minato. Naruto embraced them back, silently weeping, as if all the tears he'd never cried as a child finally released themselves. I love you both, Mom, Dad, so much. Will I ever see you again? You will, whispered Kushina, you'll always have us in your heart. We will always be in front of your eyes. As he wept, they vanished, leaving Naruto hugging the air for but a few seconds before he awakened. There were tear stains down his eyes, but he felt not sorrow, but closure. He was happy, so happy to be alive and in his life. Hinata lay beside him, facing him, her usual sweet smile on her visage. I could get used to this, he thought, waking up next to Hinata's beautiful face. I never want to wake up any other way. Suddenly, Hinata stirred and her eyes fluttered open. Good morning, she yawned. Her enhanced insightful eyes noticed tracks on Naruto's cheeks. Naruto-kun, are you okay? Okay? Naruto said with a wicked grin. I'm better than okay. He flipped himself off the bed and lifted her up by the arms, spinning her around. I'm great. I'm amazing. I'm incredible. I'm the best I've ever been. He began laughing wildly and she smiled, though bewildered, as he put her down. That's wonderful, she cooed. I'm so happy too, Naruto-kun. I'm happy that you're happy, and I'm happy because you've made me happy, and, MPHT. Naruto silenced her with a kiss. I love you, he said. I love you so much, and I want you to know that with all your being. My love for you has never faltered, she replied, holding him at the waist. It's only grown since I met you. The two stood for a minute, simply holding each other, until Hinata said, So, Sakura-chan invited me to a get-together with the other kunoichi and I was, thinking of going. Naruto, eyes wide, looked down at Hinata. You are? Yes? That's great, he said, kissing her cheek. What time do you have to go? 6ish, she said, trying to remember what Sakura had said to her drowsy self. He glanced at the clock, it's 3 right now, so that leaves us some time to. A large thunk against Naruto's window punctuated the air. What the? He opened the window and spotted a messenger bird lying dizzy on the sill. Naruto briefly wondered whether he saw little humans spinning round his head. He removed the message from the bird's leg and watched, amused, as the tiny avian creature fluttered away, frustrated. Naruto read the message to Hinata. To Hyuga Hinata-sama. Please arrive at the main hall of the Hyuga estate as soon as you receive this message. Oh my, said Hinata softly. I think it's okay, said Naruto, recalling Hiyoshi's words, it should be good to go. Hinata nodded slowly and, after a quick grooming, The two walked towards the buildings that made up the Hyuga land and stopped at the entrance to the largest. "You can do this," Naruto assured Hinata. "I know," she replied. Taking a deep breath, she stepped through the threshold. Inside the main hall, the room was completely packed. All along the sides, the balconies, and even some of the stairwells, Hyuga family members stood clumped together. Every single pupil less eye facing Hinata and Naruto, leaving a small path in the center to Hiashi, who sat on a throne in the center. Naruto caught a glimpse of Neji very close to Hiashi. Hinata and Naruto made their way to him and Naruto noticed that his eyes were not angry or hateful, but soft. They reached him and he rose from the chair, facing them. Before either Hinata or Naruto could say anything, Hiashi fell to his knees and bowed deep, his nose coming less than an inch to the ground. "Father?" Hinata asked meekly. "Hinata, my dear," said Hiashi, his face rising to look up at Hinata. "I have called you here so that the whole family, main and side branch, can see that I humble myself before your presence. You are beyond value to me, and you cannot imagine how much I have suffered from my own senseless actions. But even so, I know that you have suffered more. Yet here you stand, looking as marvelous as I have known you. That you have recovered to this extent is nothing short of definitive proof that your strength is impressive, your spirit indomitable. And so, yet again, before these men and women, your kin, I rename you my heir, the heir to the entire enormous clan and history that has supported Konoha." He closed his eyes, awaiting her response. When he opened them, she had knelt down and offered her hand to Hiashi, a smile on her features and tears in her eyes. "Rise, please, father." Hiashi took her palm, and hoisted himself up, a shocked yet pleased look on in his eyes. She hugged him tightly as she could, with not a moment's hesitation before he returned the embrace, liquid having begun its race out of his eyes as well. The entire room shook with thunderous applause and cheers. "My Hinata, my sweet, precious Hinata," said Hiashi, "welcome home." Hinata stood arm in arm with her father for seconds until the applause subsided. Then, she released him, and he said, "Now go with the man who has treated you better than any other." She nodded and hurried off with Naruto, who stood smiling, arms folded. Another torrent of cheers followed them out. "I think that went well," said Naruto. Hinata mumbled, wiping the last of the tears from her eyes. Suddenly, Naruto's stomach rumbled. "Ooh, I forgot, what with all the excitement, we haven't eaten yet, and after such an exhausting night," he said with a sly grin and a wink. "What do you say we go get something to eat at that restaurant again, eh?" "That sounds good," she said softly, clinging contentedly to Naruto's arm. "That sounds really, really good." Meanwhile, at the Konoha hospital, Sasuke was being given a brief checkup by Shizune. Kakashi, having nothing better to do at this time, decided to stick around. "I'm telling you, this is pointless," said Sasuke, "I'm fine. My wounds, minor ones at that, have already healed up. Just want to make sure you're in tip-top shape, Sasuke-kun," said Shizune. Holding a small flashlight, she said, "Fights with curse-sealed warriors can have bad side effects. Look into the bulb, please. Sharingan, or no? Tricky. I don't get to inspect an Uchiha very often. Wonder why?" Sasuke responded dryly. Ignoring this comment, she proceeded. "Give me regular, then Sharingan." Sasuke obliged. "Okay, you seem to be all good." "Thanks," said Sasuke, donning his clothing. "I'll see you later, Kakashi." Kakashi waved, not looking up from his book. As Shizune put away her equipment, she asked, "So, Kakashi-san, do you need something?" "No, not really," said Kakashi. "I'm just a little bored right now. No new missions, you see. Thought I'd come hang around here, check on how my team member was doing. And it's not so bad to be around you, either." "Thank you," she said with a light blush. Kakashi took this opportunity to ponder. Naruto and Hinata, Sasuke and Sakura. Where does that leave me? Maybe I've been out of the game too long. I think, thanks to them, I'm finally ready, mentally, to put myself back on the market. But whom would I go for?" He glanced at Shizune. That could work, he thought. She's cute, she's nice, as a medical ninja and the regrettably lazy Hokage-sama's attendant, brilliant. Why not? The question is, would she ever go for me? Of course, doubts never held Kakashi back from anything before. "Hey, Shizune-san, would you like to go out with me?" Shizune nearly dropped her scalpel. Such a question hadn't been asked in a long, long time. Kakashi-san, what did you say? I'm asking you out, he said plainly. Or do you not want to go on a date with me? That's not it. She wailed wildly, are you sure you want to go out with someone like me? Kakashi raised his visible brow. What do you mean? I'm unattractive, and old, and… Nah, said Kakashi, closing his book. I think you're pretty cute, actually. Shizune was speechless. So, when do you get off work? 7, she said blankly. Okay, I'll pick you up then, and we can catch dinner and a movie. Uh-huh, great. See you then, he said, and left the patient room, leaving Shizune still stunned. And a pat on the back for you, old boy, he thought, smiling as he walked. Later, Guy, dueling Kakashi in yet another absurd contest, coin flipping, asked, So, Kakashi, have you any plans for later? Why, want to go another bout? Just wondering, can't two friends just talk? Yeah, I suppose, said Kakashi, flipping his coin into the wall and catching it. I've got a date. Guy blanched, flipping his coin with such force that it made a small indentation in the brick wall. You haven't gone on a date in years. I noticed, said Kakashi. Guy scratched his head awkwardly. Well, who's the lucky lady? He asked slowly. Hokage-sama's attendant, Shizune-chan? Guy asked, initially shocked, then grinned his shiny grin and made a thumbs up. Well, a worthy woman for my rival, and a great exercise of your youth. Kakashi chuckled. Thanks, Guy. Don't mention it. Now come, I've yet to best you in this art of coin flipping, he exclaimed, and began shooting coins from several of his fingers. Kakashi sighed and followed suit. 7 o'clock passed and with it the shifts at the Konoha hospital switched. Shizune-chan, said Akane, a fellow medic with the shift following Shizune's. I take it you've got another boring schedule tonight? She chuckled. Is that how you really see me? Well, yeah, said Akane, I mean, all you do each night is clean up whatever mess Hokage-sama's made. With all due respect, and slash or play with your little piggy. Hey, I do plenty besides play with Taunton. Shizune objected. Oh yeah? Akane raised an eyebrow. Quickly, in the next 10 seconds, name some other place you've been in the last 3 months, aside from missions. Shizune struggled as Akane counted down. At the last second, she cried, the veterinarian's office. Akane gave her a dry look. For Taunton's checkup, she trailed off. Uh-huh, said Akane smugly, that's what I thought. Well, exclaimed Shizune haughtily. Shows how much you know. I happen to have a hot date tonight. Akane's eyes widened to dinner plates. What? Who the hell would you go out with? Hitaki Kakashi, Shizune answered, acquiring the smug attitude. Quote ellipsis. What? Akane whispered. Hitaki Kakashi-san? The Hitaki Kakashi-san? Ultimate technique master of Konoha? Legendary genius ex-Anbu captain? Tsunade-sama's next in line for Hokage if something happens to her? Akane rambled on, flabbergasted. Utterly why hunk of a shinobi? Are we talking about the same Hitaki Kakashi? We are, returned Shizune. Habu buu, he, and, but, she babbled. Have a good night, said Shizune, self-satisfied, as she turned to leave the hospital and the still stunned Akane. She left the building and, as promised, there Kakashi was, waiting for her. Okay, she thought, just tidy yourself up, Shizune, gotta look good for him. She groomed herself as best she could and breathed deep. Slowly, she headed toward Kakashi and brightly called, Kakashi-san. Hello. Ah, Shizune-san, Kakashi said pleasantly. He looked her up and down and added, you're looking very nice tonight. Are really? She asked with a blush. He nodded. Well, thank you. Let's get going, shall we? He reached out his hand and she took the offer. As soon as his fingers touched hers, she felt confidence rushing through him. Taking the initiative, she pulled his arm to her and leaned into him. He didn't resist. The night progressed in a good fashion. They watched the movie, the first of the Icha Icha trilogy, Shizune surprisingly enjoying it, and headed to dinner. They found themselves having common interests, able to talk about missions, funny incidents with various friends, and the difficulties of life. He generously paid for the dinner and they headed to her apartment. Outside the door, she looked up to him and said, I really had a good time tonight, Kakashi-san. Me too, and please, just Kakashi is fine, he said. Okay, Kakashi. Meeting his smiling gaze, she found the confidence of earlier rushing through her. Though she was instilled with resolve, she could not help her hands in shaking as she slowly reached for his mask. They quaked more and more as they approached, but Kakashi did not stop her. Finally, she pulled the thin cloth down, revealing the whole of his face, save his Sharingan. She sighed, witnessing that he was ever more handsome with his mask off. His tough, manly jaw coupled with his gentle smile made her ache for him. She moved her lips toward that smile, and to her relief, he neared her too. Finally, their lips met, kissing each other lightly, over and over. Finally, they parted and Shizune found herself involuntarily moaning afterward. "I take it you liked it?" Kakashi asked with his smile. Her head bobbed up and down. "Well, I'll see you later," he said, and turned to leave. Shizune, however, grabbed his flak jacket and pulled him back. Boldly, she asked, "Will you come in, please?" As he smiled at her, agreeing, she opened the door and yanked him in. They began to undress rapidly, Shizune removing the numerous articles of clothing on Kakashi, including the forehead protector. He kept his left eye closed, but Shizune marveled at his fully visible, handsome face. Gingerly, she traced a hand over his scar before continuing to strip him down. Finally, they were bare clothed, landing on the bed. Kakashi grinned and thrust his tongue into her mouth. He groped her breasts, average size but firm and supple, teasing the nipples lightly. She moaned at his touch. He sucked one tip, lightly tweaking it with his teeth, and the volume of her voice increased. When he was sufficiently satisfied, he returned to her mouth. Having impeccable chakra control, he directed a tiny stream of chakra to her mouth and she shrieked. What did you just do?" she asked when they parted. "Just something I picked up," he said slyly. Working as quickly as he could, he burst chakra into the next two gates. She screamed and writhed at his touch as he ran his hand down her breasts once more, running his fingers down her abdomen and eventually stopping at her entrance. She was breathing heavily as she groaned, "Yes, go." He stuck one finger through her labia, thrusting slowly but rapidly gaining momentum as her juices drenched his digits. A second finger joined the action, and soon she was orgasming over and over and finally, she slipped easily into a coma. Lightweight, Kakashi thought as he rolled over next to her, gripping her close to him. But it makes it more exciting to see what she'll be like with the other gates. My pleasure can come later. For now, I just want to please her. He watched her for a while until he too drifted off. Elsewhere, Sasuke roamed the streets of Konoha, bored out of his skull. Kakashi was out on a date. Sakura was having her kunoichi party, and who knew what Naruto was doing? The thought of his girlfriend brought to mind thoughts of their relationship. They had been dating for almost a year. In fact, their anniversary was only a day away, but unlike Naruto, whose relationship with Hinata had begun explosively, Sasuke and Sakura had yet to become truly intimate. Sure, they'd traded tongue ties, and a rare undershirt moment, but still, Sasuke felt uncomfortable with going the whole way. Sakura was very reasonable, almost unreasonably reasonable about it. Sasuke recalled confiding in Kakashi about it. "I dunno, I guess I feel I don't deserve to do it with her," he told Kakashi. I think I know why, but why don't you voice it?" Kakashi replied. "It's just, after all I've done to her, to the village, after everything I've put her through, I just don't think I'm worthy enough for her." "You'd be surprised what she thinks," said Kakashi. Kakashi had just been nice. Sasuke convinced himself, he wondered if he could talk to Naruto, get a second opinion. Decided, he quickly body flickered his way to Naruto's flat. Naruto, meanwhile, was playing some shugi with a few cage-bun shin. He moved a piece and one of his clones hissed, "Ooh, that's a bad move, a terrible move, you really shouldn't have done that." "Shut up," Naruto yelled back. Suddenly, there was a knocking at his window. He turned to see Sasuke standing there, waving. Naruto got up and opened the window, dryly telling Sasuke, "Couldn't have just come in the door like a normal person, could you?" This way was faster," he replied plainly, edging himself in and closing the window behind him. "So, I take it you're pretty bored. And how do you figure that?" asked Naruto, putting away the shugi board and dispersing his jutsu. "Well, aside from the fact that you're playing shugi, I'd say it's because Sakura is having some kind of kunoichi sleepover tonight and Hinata-san's invited." "That about right?" "Yeah," grumbled Naruto. "For the first time in a while, I'm just bored out of my skull, you know?" "I do," said Sasuke, "which is why I came here." Let's take a walk, shall we? Sure, Naruto sighed, gotta be better than just laying around here. Together, they left the apartment and wandered out onto the main streets of Konoha. So what is it you want to talk about? Naruto asked. Sakura, Sasuke answered immediately. Ah, right, how you won't touch her because you're afraid she'll hate you or something. It's not that simple. Sasuke objected. You know what I've done to her, to you, to this whole village. Are you honestly going to tell me that I deserve to be with her? Naruto sighed again. Do you know what she used to do, before we rescued you? All she would talk about is getting stronger to get you back. She hated that feeling of uselessness. She used to just look at your picture and cry. Cry because you took a part of her heart away. Now that she's got it back, do you honestly think she'll reject your advances? I don't know, said Sasuke. It's about you, it's always been about you, since way before Team 7 was formed. Sure, it started out as a small crush, but she really got to know you and loved you with all her heart. Show her that you love her too, and let her prove her love for you. Sasuke closed his eyes for but a moment in meditation. Little did Sasuke know that Naruto's amazing ability was being used once more. Sasuke was starting to believe in Naruto's words. Alright, he said, then tomorrow, on our anniversary, I'll try my best. Good for you, said Naruto with a pat on Sasuke's shoulders. Now that that's done with, said Sasuke, reaching into his pocket and revealed a sizable bottle of sake. How about you and I go out on the town? Naruto grinned.